Keep your hands on the hood. Don't make a sound.
What is this in your pocket?
Detective James Cole's hand trembled not from fear, but from pure rage. The gunshot still echoed across the parking lot as he stood over the bleeding man in the navy suit, his service weapon smoking in his grip. "I said don't move!" Cole screamed, though the man had done nothing but turn away. "You people never learn, do you?" The man clutched his shoulder, blood seeping through expensive fabric, but his eyes, those calm, knowing eyes, never showed fear. They showed something worse, certainty. "You just ended your career, detective," the man whispered through gritted teeth. Cole kicked him, hard. "Shut up! You're under arrest!" But before you find out who this bleeding man really is and why Detective Cole just made the worst mistake of his life, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's rewind 12 hours and watch how one racist cop's arrogance destroyed everything. 12 hours earlier, Commander Elijah Stone sat in a hotel room 3 blocks from the 9th Precinct, reviewing files that made his stomach turn. 23 excessive force complaints in 18 months, 16 of them against minority citizens, 0 disciplinary actions. The pattern wasn't subtle, it was screaming. "This place is worse than Chicago," he muttered, closing the folder marked Detective James Cole, Personnel File. Stone had built his reputation dismantling corruption. 3 police chiefs taken down, the most powerful union corruption ring in the Midwest destroyed. And now, at 42, he'd been appointed to clean up this cesspool. But he'd learned something over 2 decades in internal affairs: you can't fix what you can't see, and these cops they performed for the cameras played nice when supervisors watched. He needed to see them raw, unfiltered, real. So he'd arrived 3 days early, no announcements, no official welcome, just a rental car and a plan to observe. His phone buzzed. Commissioner Marcus Webb. "Stone confirming our meeting Monday at 0900. The mayor's excited to introduce you to the department." "I'll be there, Commissioner." "Good. And, Elijah, be careful. The 9th Precinct. There's a culture there, old school, resistant to change." Stone smiled grimly. "That's exactly why I'm here." He hung up and checked his watch. 5:47 a.m. Shift change at the 9th started at 6. Perfect time to watch how officers really behaved when they thought no one important was looking. The Mercedes S-Class was deliberate. Stone had learned that expensive cars in poor neighborhoods triggered certain cops like blood in water. It was a test, a diagnostic tool. He wanted to see who would approach how they'd approach, and what assumptions they'd make about a black man in a luxury vehicle. He parked in the visitor section of the precinct lot, 50 yards from the main entrance. The building was a brutal concrete fortress, all harsh angles and tinted windows, a monument to authority designed to intimidate. Officers began arriving. Stone watched them through slightly tinted windows. He noted everything: the swagger, the casual profanity, the way they touched their weapons unconsciously like security blankets. Then he saw Detective James Cole, 6'2", 220 pounds of coiled aggression. Cole emerged from a black Dodge Charger, slamming the door hard enough to make it bounce. Even from a distance, Stone could read the body language, a man who viewed the world as his personal kingdom. Cole was talking to his partner, Detective Lisa Martinez, younger, maybe late 20s, following Cole like a shadow. She laughed at something he said, the kind of forced laugh subordinates give superiors. Behind them, a younger officer emerged from a patrol car, fresh-faced, nervous, rookie written all over him. Stone pulled out a small notebook, jotting observations. This was what he did: watched, recorded, analyzed. Human behavior was predictable once you understood the patterns. Cole stopped mid-stride, his attention snapping to the Mercedes. Stone watched the detective's posture change instantly. Shoulders back, chest out, hand drifting toward his holster. "Here we go," Stone whispered. Cole said something to Martinez, pointing at the Mercedes. She nodded, her expression uncertain. The rookie Stone could see his name tag now. Foster hung back, clearly uncomfortable. Stone remained still, hands visible on the steering wheel. This was the moment. Would Cole approach professionally? Request identification politely? Follow protocol? Or would he reveal exactly who he was? Cole's hand was already on his weapon as he approached the driver's side, not drawn but resting on it. a threat, an announcement of power. Stone rolled down the window, slowly, deliberately. "Morning, Detective," Stone said calmly, his voice smooth and professional. Cole's eyes narrowed. "Step out of the vehicle." Not a request, a command. No identification of himself as a police officer. No explanation for the stop, just raw authority expecting instant compliance. "May I ask what this is regarding?" Stone kept his tone even polite, give him every chance to de-escalate. "I said step out of the vehicle, now." Martinez appeared at the passenger window, her hand also on her weapon. The rookie Foster stood 10 feet back, his face pale. Stone made a point of asking, "Am I being detained, Detective?" Cole's jaw tightened. "You're being detained for suspicious activity. Now get out before I drag you out." "What suspicious activity would that be?" "You questioning me?" Cole's voice rose. "You sitting in a police parking lot in a car that's probably stolen. That's what? Out. Now." Stone complied. Slowly. He opened the door, keeping his hands visible, and stepped out. The morning air was cold, and he was dressed in a tailored navy suit, white shirt, silk tie. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He looked exactly like what he was, a professional, a leader, someone who didn't belong in Cole's narrow worldview of what a black man in this neighborhood should look like. "Hands on the vehicle," Cole barked. "Detective, I'm happy to cooperate, but I'd like to know the legal basis for this stop." That was the trigger, the question, the challenge to authority that Cole couldn't tolerate. "The legal basis is I'm a cop and you're not. Hands on the vehicle or you're under arrest for obstruction." Stone placed his hands on the hood of the Mercedes. He could feel Martinez behind him, could sense Foster's discomfort radiating like heat. Cole began a rough pat-down, aggressive and invasive, hands grabbing, pushing, violating personal space in a way that had nothing to do with officer safety and everything to do with dominance. "Nice suit," Cole sneered. "What did you do, rob a businessman?" "I am a businessman," Stone replied calmly. "Yeah, what business?" "Law enforcement." The words hung in the air for a heartbeat. Cole laughed. "Law enforcement, that's what we're calling it now. You a rent-a-cop." "Something like that." Martinez was running the Mercedes plates. Stone heard her radio transmission. "Dispatch running a plate, Lincoln 7328 Charlie Frank, registered to an address in Chicago, Illinois." The radio crackled back. "No wants or warrants on that plate." Cole wasn't satisfied. "Chicago long, way from home. What brings you to our city?" "Work," Stone said simply. "What kind of work?" "The kind that starts Monday." Cole didn't like that answer, didn't like the calm, didn't like that this man wasn't cowering, wasn't afraid, wasn't playing the role Cole expected. "You got ID." "In my jacket, inside pocket." "Get it, slowly." Stone reached into his suit jacket. His fingers touched the leather credential case, the one that would end this immediately. But he hesitated. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every person Cole had brutalized, every citizen he'd terrorized, every use of force he'd justified with lies. Stone needed to see how far Cole would go, needed evidence not just of misconduct, but of the malice behind it. So instead of pulling out his credentials, Stone pulled out his driver's license. Just that. A simple Illinois ID. Cole snatched it. "Elijah Stone, Chicago address." "What are you really doing here, Elijah?" "Like I said, starting a job Monday." "What job?" "That's confidential." "Wrong answer." Cole's face flushed red. "Confidential. You think you're clever. You think you're special. I think I'm a citizen complying with your requests, Detective." "You being smart with me?" Martinez interjected, her voice uncertain. "Cole, maybe you should shut up and let me handle this," Cole snapped at her. Foster finally spoke up, his voice cracking slightly. "Detective Cole, the plates came back clean. He's not wanted for anything. Maybe we should just—" "Did I ask you, rookie?" Cole wheeled on Foster. "You've been on the job 6 months and you think you know how to work the street." Foster's mouth snapped shut. Cole turned back to Stone. The dynamic had shifted. This wasn't about suspicion anymore. This was about ego, about power, about a detective who'd been questioned and couldn't let it go. Here's what's going to happen, Cole said, stepping closer to Stone. You're going to tell me exactly what you're doing in this parking lot, in this neighborhood, in that car, or I'm taking you in. On what charge? I'll think of something. Stone met his eyes, really looked at him, and what he saw was a man drowning in his own inadequacy, his own fear, his own racism. A man who needed to dominate because without that power, he was nothing. Detective, Stone said quietly, you're making a mistake. The only mistake here is you thinking you can disrespect me. I haven't disrespected you. I've answered every question, complied with every order. Nah, you've been running your mouth, questioning my authority. I don't like it. Stone could have ended it right then. Could have said, I'm your new chief, could have pulled out his credentials and watched Cole's world implode, but he didn't, because he needed to see the bottom, needed to know exactly how rotten this department was, and Cole was about to show him. Turn around, Cole ordered. Hands behind your back. You're arresting me. I'm detaining you for further investigation. Of what crime? Resisting arrest for starters. I haven't resisted anything. You're resisting right now. Martinez stepped forward. Cole, come on, this is police work, Martinez. This is how you handle suspects who don't comply. He is complying, she said weakly, but Stone could see it in her eyes. She wouldn't push back, wouldn't stand up, would fall in line because that's what the culture demanded. Foster looked like he might vomit. Stone turned around slowly, presenting his hands behind his back. The handcuffs bit into his wrists, tighter than necessary. Another petty cruelty. You have the right to remain silent. Cole began, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Detective, Stone interrupted. I need to inform you that this detention is unlawful. You have no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. What you're doing right now is a civil rights violation under Title 42, Section 1983. Cole's face went purple. What did you just say to me? I'm informing you of the law. You're a street lawyer now. Think you know the law better than me. In this case, yes. That did it. Cole grabbed Stone by the shoulder and spun him around, slamming him against the Mercedes. The impact jarred Stone's teeth, sent pain shooting through his chest. You arrogant son of a... Cole's voice was pure rage now. Foster stepped forward. Detective, please, this isn't... Back off, Foster. This suspect is resisting. I'm not resisting, Stone said calmly, though his heart was racing now. Not from fear, but from the realization that Cole was spiraling, losing control. You're resisting and you're armed, Cole announced. I'm not armed. I felt something in your jacket, a weapon. Stone's blood ran cold. This was it. The moment dirty cops manufactured evidence, created narratives, justified violence. Detective, I'm not armed. I'm complying. My hands are cuffed behind my back. But Cole was already reaching into Stone's jacket, his hands rough and invasive. He found the credential case again, the one Stone had deliberately not pulled out. Cole ripped it from the inner pocket, held it up triumphantly. What's this? What are you hiding? That's my identification, Stone said evenly. You already gave me ID. That's my professional ID. Cole flipped open the case. Stone watched. His face watched the moment the words registered, but didn't compute. Detective Cole's brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. The badge, the credentials, the photograph. Commander Elijah Stone, Internal Affairs Division, Chicago Police Department. Cole stared at it, read it again. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. This is fake, he finally said, but his voice wavered. It's not fake, Detective. You're impersonating a police officer. That's a felony. I'm not impersonating anyone. That's my actual badge. Martinez came closer, looking over Cole's shoulder. Her face went sheet white. Cole, that looks real. It's fake, Cole insisted, but Stone could hear the panic creeping in. It's real, Stone said quietly. And you just assaulted a superior officer. Bullshit. You're running some kind of scam. The scam is your career, Detective. The scam is this department. And I'm here to end it. Cole's hand shook as he held the credentials. His world was tilting, reality fracturing. But instead of backing down, instead of de-escalating, he did what cornered predators always do. He attacked. You think you can come into my city with some fake badge and fake credentials and intimidate me? I don't care who you claim to be. Then call it in, Stone said. Call your dispatch. Have them contact Chicago PD Internal Affairs. Verify my identity. I don't need to verify anything. Cole, maybe we should... Martinez tried again. Shut up. Foster's voice was barely a whisper. Detective Cole, if he's really... He's not. He's a con artist, and I'm taking him in. Stone remained perfectly calm. Detective James Cole, badge number 714. You are currently in violation of multiple statutes. You've conducted an illegal stop, an illegal search, filed false charges, and assaulted a police officer. I suggest you shut your mouth. Cole grabbed Stone by the collar and yanked him away from the Mercedes. Stone stumbled, his hands still cuffed behind his back, his balance compromised. Cole, Martinez's voice was sharp now. This is too far. It's not far enough. And that's when Stone made his final calculation. He'd seen enough, documented enough in his mind. Every word, every action, every violation. But he needed one more thing. He needed Cole to reveal his true nature completely, irrevocably. So Stone did something that would seem insane to anyone watching. He pushed back. You're afraid, Stone said, his voice cutting through Cole's rage. That's what this is. You're terrified that I'm real, terrified that your world is about to end. I'm not afraid of anything. You're afraid of accountability, afraid of a system that actually enforces rules, afraid that you'll be judged the way you've judged others. Shut up. You see a black man in a nice suit in a nice car and your whole worldview breaks because in your mind we're supposed to be beneath you, supposed to fear you, and when we don't... Cole's fist connected with Stone's jaw. The punch was vicious, fueled by 12 years of unchecked power and bottomless insecurity. Stone's head snapped to the side, blood filling his mouth. But he didn't fall, didn't cry out, just slowly turned his head back, blood trickling from his split lip, and smiled. That's assault on a police officer, detective. Witnesses present. I assume Officer Foster's body camera is recording. Foster's face was ghost white. He nodded mutely. Cole's breathing was ragged now, his control completely gone. You're not a cop, you're not anything. I'm your new chief of police, Stone said clearly, letting each word land like a hammer. And you just punched me in the face. Liar. Call Commissioner Webb, right now. His personal number is in my phone. Call him and ask him who Elijah Stone is. Martinez grabbed Cole's arm. We need to call this in. We need to verify. If he's telling the truth, he's not, then prove it, she shouted. Make the call. But Cole didn't reach for his radio, didn't reach for his phone, because somewhere in his lizard brain, underneath the rage and the fear and the racism, he knew Stone was telling the truth, and that knowledge was destroying him. You set me up, Cole whispered. This was a setup. No, detective. I gave you every opportunity to do the right thing. You chose this. Foster finally found his voice. Detective Cole, we need to uncuff him. We need to call the commissioner. We don't need to do anything, Cole roared. You do, Stone said. His jaw was swelling now, the pain sharp and hot. You need to uncuff me. Call for a supervisor and prepare to explain your actions. Or you can keep digging this hole deeper. Cole's hand went to his service weapon. The movement was subtle, almost unconscious, but Stone saw it. Martinez saw it. Foster saw it. Don't, Martinez breathed. Cole, don't you dare. He's resisting, Cole said, and his voice had gone cold, mechanical. The voice of a man constructing a narrative. He's aggressive, threatening. I feel endangered. Stone's pulse quickened. This was beyond corruption now. This was desperation, and desperate men did insane things. Detective Cole, Stone said carefully, I'm handcuffed. I'm bleeding. I'm not threatening anyone. You're threatening me right now with your lies, your fake credentials. They're real. I don't believe you. Then call it in. I don't have to call anything in. I'm the law here. No. Stone said quietly. "You're a criminal with a badge." Cole drew his weapon. Martinez screamed, "Cole, no!" Foster's hand went to his own weapon, torn between loyalty and morality. Stone stood perfectly still, hands cuffed behind his back, a gun pointed at his chest. He looked directly into Cole's eyes and saw a man at war with himself, saw the pride battling the fear, saw the racism battling the dawning realization of consequence. "If you shoot me," Stone said, his voice steady, "it's over. Not just your career, your freedom, your life. Everything. Is your ego worth that? You're a threat. I'm unarmed, handcuffed, complying, and you know it. You're reaching for something. My hands are behind my back, detective. Everyone can see that. Your partner sees it. Officer Foster sees it. Whatever narrative you're building, it won't hold." But Cole's hand was shaking now, the weapon trembling, and Stone realized with cold clarity that the shaking wasn't from doubt. It was from adrenaline, from commitment. Cole was going to shoot him. "Turn around," Cole ordered, his voice cracking. "Detective, turn around. You're trying to escape. Turn around or I'll fire." Stone didn't move. "I'm not turning around. If you're going to shoot an unarmed, handcuffed superior officer, you'll do it while I'm looking at you. You'll remember my face for the rest of your life." "Cole, please," Martinez was crying now. "Don't do this." Foster had drawn his weapon, but he wasn't pointing it at Stone. He was pointing it at the ground, his whole body shaking. "Last chance," Cole said. "Turn around." Stone didn't blink. "No." Cole fired. The gunshot was deafening, a physical force that seemed to split the morning in half. Stone felt the impact before the pain, a massive punch to his right shoulder that spun him partially around. He stumbled, his legs failing to hold him. His hands were still cuffed, so he couldn't catch himself. He hit the pavement hard, his cheek scraping concrete. The pain arrived then, searing white-hot, radiating from his shoulder through his entire body. He could feel blood, warm and wet, soaking through his suit jacket. Martinez was screaming into her radio. "Shots fired. Officer needs assistance. We need an ambulance. Officer involved shooting." Foster had dropped to his knees, his hands on his head, rocking back and forth. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." And Cole stood over Stone, the gun still in his hand, his face a mask of pure terror. Because he'd done it. He'd actually done it. He'd shot a man for the crime of being black and not showing fear. Stone tried to speak, but his mouth filled with blood. Not from the gunshot, from the earlier punch. He turned his head spitting red onto the concrete and looked up at Cole. The detective was hyperventilating now, the gun hanging limply at his side. He was reaching," Cole stammered. "He wasn't reaching for anything," Martinez shouted. "His hands were cuffed. What did you do? What did you do?" Stone forced words out through the pain. "You ended your career, detective." Cole's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the pavement, the gun clattering away from his nerveless fingers. "He was resisting," Cole whispered, but there was no conviction in it now, just desperate repetition. "He was armed. He was dangerous. He was handcuffed." Martinez was sobbing. "He was unarmed. And if he's telling the truth, if he's not." But Cole's voice was hollow. Stone's vision was starting to blur at the edges. Shock was setting in, but he needed to stay conscious, needed to remember every detail. The sound of sirens rose in the distance. Help was coming. Or more accurately, witnesses were coming. "Officer Foster," Stone managed to say, his voice weak but clear. "Your body camera, still recording?" Foster looked at him, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, sir." "Good. Don't turn it off, no matter what anyone says." "I won't, sir. I promise." Martinez was kneeling beside Stone now, her hands pressed against his shoulder wound, trying to staunch the bleeding. "The ambulance is coming. Just hold on." Stone looked up at her. "You knew he was wrong. Why didn't you stop him?" She couldn't meet his eyes. "I tried. Not hard enough." Her sob was answer enough.
More police cars were screeching into the parking lot. Officers poured out weapons drawn, not sure what they were responding to. "Paramedics!" Martinez screamed. "We need paramedics now!" A sergeant pushed through the crowd, a veteran with gray hair and hard eyes. He took in the scene, the handcuffed man bleeding on the pavement. Detective Cole sitting in shock. Martinez covered in blood. Foster curled up and crying. "What the hell happened here?" Martinez couldn't speak. Foster couldn't look up. Cole's mouth moved, but no sound came out. So Stone answered. Despite the pain, despite the blood loss, despite everything, he made sure his voice was clear enough for everyone to hear. "Detective Cole conducted an illegal stop, assaulted me, and when I informed him of my identity, he shot me." The sergeant frowned. "Your identity, Commander Elijah Stone, Internal Affairs, Chicago PD." Each word cost him, but he got them out. "I'm your new Chief of Police. First day was supposed to be Monday." The sergeant's face went from confused to horrified to absolutely devastated in the span of 3 seconds. "Oh, sweet Jesus," he whispered. Cole heard it, the confirmation, the truth he'd been denying. And something inside him finally completely broke. He looked down at his hands, the hands that had cuffed an innocent man, punched a superior officer, fired a weapon at an unarmed target, and he began to shake. Not just his hands, his whole body. The sergeant was already on his radio. "I need the commissioner at this location immediately, and the mayor, and, Christ, everyone. We need everyone." The ambulance arrived, paramedics rushing out with a stretcher. They cut away Stone's jacket and shirt, exposing the wound. The bullet had entered the shoulder, missing vital arteries, but causing massive tissue damage. "Sir, can you tell me your name?" the lead paramedic asked. "Elijah Stone. Can you tell me what happened?" Stone looked past the paramedic to where Cole sat staring at nothing. "I was shot by a police officer who made assumptions based on my skin color." The paramedic's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before, too many times. As they loaded Stone onto the stretcher, he kept his eyes open, kept watching. Watched Martinez being pulled aside by the sergeant. Watched Foster being separated from Cole. Watched Cole sitting alone in the parking lot, his career and life crumbling around him in real time. And just before they loaded him into the ambulance, Stone saw it. Cole looked down at his lap. A dark stain was spreading across his uniform pants. The detective had wet himself. The realization of what he'd done, the terror of the consequences, the complete collapse of his world, it had manifested in the most primal, humiliating way possible. A officer nearby noticed. "Jesus Christ," Cole pissed himself. The murmur spread through the gathered cops. Some looked away in disgust. Others stared in morbid fascination. But all of them understood what it meant. Cole was finished. Not just fired, not just prosecuted, destroyed. As the ambulance doors closed, Stone heard the sergeant reading Cole his rights. "Detective James Cole, you are under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, and violation of civil rights under color of authority." The words faded as the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing. Stone closed his eyes, not from pain, but from a grim satisfaction. He'd come to observe a broken system. Instead, he'd become the catalyst to burn it down, and the fire was just beginning. The ambulance screamed through morning traffic, its siren a wailing accusation that seemed to indict the entire city. Inside, Commander Elijah Stone lay strapped to the gurney, his shoulder packed with gauze that was already soaking through with blood. The lead paramedic, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and steady hands, worked quickly to establish an IV line. "Sir, I need you to stay with me," she said, checking his vitals. "Your blood pressure's dropping. Have you ever had surgery before?" "Twice," Stone managed through gritted teeth. "Appendectomy when I was 12. Knee surgery after a foot chase went bad." "Any allergies to medication?" "None." She nodded, making notes on her tablet. Her partner, a younger man with nervous energy, was on the radio with the hospital.
We're bringing in a GSW to the right shoulder. Patient is a 42-year-old male, conscious and alert, but showing signs of shock. BP is 90/60 and falling, ETA 4 minutes. The young paramedic glanced at Stone, then at his partner. Is it true? Is he really the new police chief? The woman shot him a look that could cut glass. Focus on your job, Marcus. But Stone heard the question underneath the question. The disbelief. The same disbelief that had nearly gotten him killed. It's true. Stone said, his voice stronger than he felt. And I need both of you to document everything. The wound trajectory, the evidence on my clothing, everything. The woman met his eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding. She'd treated enough victims of police violence to recognize what this was. We will, sir. I promise you we will. The ambulance hit a pothole, jarring Stone's shoulder. He bit back a scream, tasting blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. Almost there, the woman soothed. The trauma team is waiting. You're going to be fine. Stone wanted to believe her, but fine was relative. His shoulder felt like it was on fire, nerves screaming in a language that transcended words. Every heartbeat sent fresh waves of agony radiating through his chest and down his arm. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the rage building in his gut. Not rage at Cole, that was too simple. Rage at a system that had created Cole. Rage at departments that promoted men like him, protected them, enabled them. Rage at a culture that saw a black man in a nice suit and immediately assumed criminal. The ambulance pulled into the emergency bay at Metro General. The doors flew open, and suddenly Stone was surrounded by a trauma team in blue scrubs, all controlled chaos and barked orders. GSW to the right shoulder, entry wound, anterior no exit wound visible. Patient is hypotensive, tachycardic. Let's move people. They transferred him to a hospital gurney, the motion sending fresh spikes of pain through his body. The ceiling tiles blurred past as they rushed him through automatic doors into the harsh fluorescent lighting of the ER. A doctor appeared above him, young and intense, her eyes scanning him with clinical precision. Sir, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. We're going to take care of you. Can you tell me your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? 8. Stone lied. It was closer to a 12. We're going to get you into surgery. The bullet is still lodged in your shoulder, and we need to remove it before there's more damage to the surrounding tissue. Wait, Stone said, grabbing her wrist with his good hand. Before surgery, I need to make a phone call. Sir, you need immediate surgical intervention. 1 call, 2 minutes, please. Dr. Chen looked at him, really looked at him, saw the determination in his eyes, the clarity despite the pain. 2 minutes, she said. Then you're mine. A nurse brought his personal effects sealed in a plastic bag. His phone was inside, miraculously undamaged. Stone's hands shook as he unlocked it, whether from shock or adrenaline he couldn't tell. He dialed Commissioner Webb's personal line. It rang twice before Webb's voice answered, irritated at the early interruption. This better be important. Commissioner, it's Stone. Webb's tone changed instantly. Elijah, where are you? I just got a call from a sergeant at the 9th saying there was an officer-involved shooting, but the details were confused. The details aren't confused, sir. I'm the one who got shot. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, what did you just say? Detective James Cole of the 9th Precinct shot me in the precinct parking lot approximately 20 minutes ago. I'm at Metro General about to go into surgery. The wound is non-fatal, but serious. Stone heard something crash on the other end of the line, Webb swearing. Then the commissioner's voice returned sharp and urgent. Tell me everything, right now. In 90 seconds, Stone laid out the facts. The illegal stop, the search, the assault, the shooting. He kept his voice clinical professional because emotion would come later. Right now, he needed Webb to understand the magnitude of what had happened. When he finished, Webb was silent for a long moment. Mother of God, the commissioner finally breathed. Elijah, I am so sorry. This never should have. Don't apologize, sir. Document. I need this investigation handled by the book. No favors, no departmental loyalty, no cover-ups. If we don't handle this right, everything we're trying to build dies before it starts. I'll have internal affairs. Not our internal affairs. State level, maybe even federal. This department can't investigate itself not on this. Webb understood immediately. Agreed. I'm calling the state police and the FBI. This goes to the Justice Department if it needs to. Good. And Commissioner Officer Foster, badge number 92. His body camera recorded everything. Make sure that footage is secured before anyone can tamper with it. Consider it done. Elijah, I'm coming to the hospital right now. No, sir. Go to the 9th Precinct. Take control of the scene. Make sure Cole is in custody, and make sure every witness is separated and interviewed properly. The mayor needs to be informed. The press is going to be all over this. Let them, Webb said, and there was steel in his voice now. Let the whole world see what happened. We're not hiding this. Chen was making urgent gestures. Time was up. I have to go into surgery, sir. We'll talk after. Elijah, you did everything right. You hear me? Everything. This is on Cole, not you. Stone closed his eyes. I know, sir, but that doesn't make the bullet hole hurt any less. He hung up as the orderlies began wheeling him toward the operating room. The last thing he saw before the pre-op sedative hit his system was Dr. Chen's determined face. Don't worry, Commander. I'm going to put you back together. Just make sure I can still use the arm. Stone mumbled the drugs pulling him under. I've got a lot of work to do. You'll be able to use it, she promised. Now count backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8. The world went black. 3 hours later, Stone woke in recovery to find Commissioner Webb sitting beside his bed, looking like he'd aged a decade. The older man's face was gray, his eyes bloodshot. Welcome back, Webb said quietly. Stone tried to sit up, gasped at the pain, and fell back against the pillows. His right shoulder was immobilized in a complex brace, and he could feel the deep ache of surgical intervention. How bad? He asked. The bullet shattered your scapula, damaged the rotator cuff, and nicked a nerve cluster. Dr. Chen says you'll recover full function, but it's going to take months of physical therapy. Stone absorbed this. Months. He'd been planning to hit the ground running to implement reforms immediately. Now he'd be doing it one-handed while recovering from being shot by his own officer. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Cole? He asked. Webb's expression hardened. In federal custody. The FBI took him from our lockup 2 hours ago. He's being charged with attempted murder, civil rights violations, assault under color of authority, and about 6 other felonies I can't even remember. His career is over, Elijah. His life is over. And Martinez, also arrested. Accessory to assault, failure to intervene, filing a false report. Her lawyer is already trying to make a deal, claiming she was intimidated by Cole. She was, Stone said. But she still made a choice. What about Foster? Webb's face softened slightly. The kid's a mess, blaming himself for not stopping it sooner. But his body camera footage is the key piece of evidence. Without that, Cole might have been able to spin a narrative. With it, there's no ambiguity. Foster saved the case. Stone nodded. He'll need protection. The old guard will come after him for being a rat. Already handled. I've assigned him to a special detail under my direct supervision. And Elijah, the mayor wants to see you as soon as you're able. I'm able now. You just had surgery 3 hours ago. I'm still the chief of police, Marcus, and we have a crisis to manage. Webb smiled grimly. You're just like they said you were. Stubborn as hell. Is that a compliment? In this case, yeah. A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse poked her head in. Commander Stone. There are about 40 reporters in the lobby asking about you. Security is keeping them out, but they're getting aggressive. Stone looked at Webb. We need to get ahead of this story. Already working on it. I've scheduled a press conference for 6 p.m. I was going to handle it myself. But if you're up for it, I'll be there. Elijah, you need rest. You've been shot. And that's exactly why I need to be there. The optics matter, Marcus. If I hide, if I let others speak for me, it looks like I'm ashamed, like I did something wrong. I need to show this city that I'm still standing, still fighting, and that what happened to me is exactly why I'm here. Webb studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but you're doing it from a wheelchair, and if Dr. Chen objects, the deal's off. Dr. Chen, as it turned out, did object, strenuously. But when Stone explained his reasoning, she reluctantly agreed with conditions. You get 4 hours of rest minimum, you take the pain medication I prescribe, and if at any point you feel dizzy, nauseous, or your wound starts bleeding, you stop immediately. Understood? Yes, ma'am. I'm serious, Commander. You just had major surgery. Your body needs time to heal. I understand. But my job doesn't stop because I got shot. If anything, it starts now. She sighed, the sound of someone who knew she was fighting a losing battle. Politicians. You're all the same. Fine. But I'm coming to the press conference with you, and if I don't like what I see, I'm pulling the plug. Deal. The hours until the press conference passed in a blur of phone calls, briefings, and interviews. The FBI sent 2 agents to take Stone's statement. He walked them through every detail clinically and precisely. They recorded it, all their faces growing darker with each revelation. Commander Stone, the lead agent said when he finished, I've been investigating civil rights violations for 15 years. This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've ever seen. Detective Cole is going to prison for a very long time. Good, Stone said simply. But I don't just want Cole. I want the culture that created him. I want every officer in that precinct who knew what he was and said nothing. I want the supervisors who ignored complaints. I want everyone who enabled this. The agent smiled. Then we're going to get along just fine. At 5:30, they dressed Stone in a clean shirt and suit jacket, carefully maneuvered over his shoulder brace. The right sleeve hung empty, pinned at the shoulder. The visual was powerful. A police chief wounded in the line of duty, except the line of duty was his own department. Webb wheeled him to the hospital's main conference room, which had been hastily converted into a press center. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, and microphones. The energy was electric, everyone sensing they were witnessing something historic. The mayor was there, a tall woman in her 50s named Patricia Morse. She had a reputation as a reformer, which is why she'd hired Stone in the first place. When she saw him in the wheelchair, her face crumpled briefly before she rebuilt her composure. Commander Stone, she said, gripping his good hand, I am so deeply sorry this happened. Don't be sorry, Madam Mayor. Be ready, because what we're about to do is going to shake this city to its foundation. She smiled, a real smile, fierce and determined. I've been waiting for someone with the guts to do it. Let's shake it. At 6 p.m. precisely, they wheeled Stone to the podium. The cameras flashed like lightning, creating a strobe effect that made his head pound. But he kept his face neutral, professional. Commissioner Webb spoke first, laying out the basic facts of what had happened. The room erupted with questions, but Webb held up a hand. Commander Stone will make a statement. Then we'll take questions. Stone adjusted the microphone with his good hand. When he spoke, his voice was steady, clear, and carried the weight of absolute conviction. This morning I was shot by Detective James Cole of the 9th Precinct. I was unarmed. I was complying with all instructions. I was handcuffed when he fired. The reason I was shot is simple. Detective Cole saw a black man in an expensive car and immediately assumed I was a criminal. When I didn't show fear, when I didn't submit to his illegal authority, he escalated to violence. And when that violence wasn't enough to satisfy his ego, he escalated to attempted murder. The room was absolutely silent. I am alive because the bullet missed my major arteries by less than an inch. I will recover full use of my arm, though it will take months. But I'm one of the lucky ones. How many citizens of this city have faced Detective Cole's violence and weren't lucky? How many complied, showed fear, submitted to illegal searches and assaults because they knew resistance might mean death? How many are in jail right now because Cole filed false reports? How many families have been destroyed because officers like Cole are protected by a system that values loyalty over justice? A reporter tried to ask a question, but Stone kept going. I came to this city with a mandate to reform the police department, to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the community, to create a culture of accountability and transparency. I was going to start slowly, carefully winning hearts and minds. But Detective Cole changed those plans. He didn't just shoot me. He exposed the cancer at the heart of this department. And now instead of careful reform, we're going to perform radical surgery. Mayor Moore stepped forward, standing beside his wheelchair in a powerful show of solidarity. Effective immediately, she announced. I am declaring a state of emergency in the police department. Commander Stone, despite his injury, will assume full authority as chief of police. He will have complete autonomy to investigate discipline and restructure the department as he sees fit. No officer is safe. No practice is sacred. Everything is on the table. The reporters erupted with questions, all shouting at once. Stone pointed to one with his good hand. Chief Stone, do you believe this was an isolated incident or part of a pattern? The evidence will show it's a pattern. Detective Cole has 3 prior shootings, all ruled justified. I find that statistic suspicious and will be reopening every case. Another reporter. Are you saying the previous investigations were corrupt? I'm saying they weren't thorough enough, and I'm saying that changes now. Baichi. A third reporter, more aggressive. Some people are saying you provoked Detective Cole, that you should have identified yourself immediately instead of testing him. Stone's eyes went cold. I was testing the department's response to a black citizen exercising their constitutional rights. The department failed that test catastrophically. If an officer only treats people with respect after learning they're powerful or important, that officer doesn't deserve to wear a badge. But you endangered yourself. No. Stone cut him off. Detective Cole endangered me. Don't shift the blame. I did nothing illegal. I didn't threaten anyone. I answered questions politely. And for that, I was assaulted and shot. If you think that's somehow my fault, then you're part of the problem. The reporter sat down chastened. A woman in the front row stood. Chief Stone, what's your message to the officers of the 9th Precinct who are watching this? Stone looked directly into the nearest camera. If you're a good cop who's been watching the Detective Coles of the world corrupt your profession, your moment has come. I'm giving you a chance to step forward to testify to help us clean house. You will be protected, you will be rewarded, and you will be part of building something better. But if you're like Cole, if you think the badge gives you power without accountability, if you see citizens as subjects instead of people you're sworn to protect, then I have a different message. I'm coming for you. I will find you. I will expose you. And I will end your career. You have one choice: change or leave. There is no third option. The room exploded with questions again. Webb called on another reporter. Chief Stone, the police union has released a statement saying you're creating a hostile work environment and that officers are afraid to do their jobs. How do you respond? Stone smiled, though there was no humor in it. If officers are afraid to do their jobs, that means they've been doing their jobs wrong. Good police work doesn't require fear. It requires courage, integrity, and respect for the law. If the union is worried about my reforms, then the union has been protecting exactly the kind of officers I'm here to remove. They can work with me or against me, but either way, the reforms are happening. Mayor Morse added, the union does not run this city. The citizens do, and the citizens have spoken loud and clear. They want accountability. We're giving it to them. Webb called on one more reporter, a young woman from a local station. Chief Stone, you mentioned that healing from your wound will take months. Are you really capable of leading this department while recovering from a gunshot? Ma'am, I've spent 20 years investigating police corruption. I've faced death threats, career sabotage, and every intimidation tactic you can imagine. Getting shot by a racist cop doesn't slow me down. It focuses me. If anything, Detective Cole just handed me the motivation and the moral authority to do what I came here to do. So yes, I'm capable, more capable than ever. Dr. Chen stepped forward from the side of the room. But he's also doing it while following my medical orders. This press conference is over. My patient needs rest. Stone started to object, but the look on her face stopped him. He nodded. Thank you all for coming. We'll have daily briefings as the investigation progresses. This city deserves transparency, and you're going to get it. As they wheeled him out, reporters continued shouting questions, but Stone was done performing. The message had been sent. The line had been drawn. Back in his hospital room, Webb helped him into bed while Dr. Chen checked his vitals and the surgical site. No bleeding, no signs of stress on the wound, she said approvingly. You did good, Commander, but now you rest. Doctor's orders. How long do I have to stay here? Minimum 48 hours, maximum 72. Depends on how you respond to treatment. Stone closed his eyes, exhaustion crashing over him like a wave. Wake me if anything urgent happens. Define urgent, Webb said. If the city's burning or Cole escapes custody, urgent. Anything else can wait. But sleep didn't come easy. Every time Stone closed his eyes, he saw Cole's face, saw the hatred, saw the moment the detective decided that a black man's life was worth less than his ego. And Stone thought about all the times Cole had made that same decision before, all the citizens who'd faced that hatred and didn't have the resources, the authority, the platform to fight back. He thought about them until sleep finally took him. Meanwhile, across the city at the Federal Detention Center, Detective James Cole sat in a holding cell, still wearing his urine-stained pants because he'd refused to change. The shame was paralyzing. His union rep had visited an hour ago a slick lawyer named Dennis Kramer, who'd made a career defending dirty cops. "How bad is it?" Cole had asked. Kramer's expression said everything. "James, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've gotten cops off for shootings that looked way worse than this. But this, the body camera footage, the witnesses, the fact that he's the goddamn chief of police, this is indefensible. He provoked me. He was being smart, questioning my authority. He was exercising his rights, and you shot him for it on camera. There's no spin here, James. No narrative we can build. You're going to prison." Cole had started crying then. "How long?" "The federal prosecutor is talking about 25 to 30 years. Attempted murder of a police officer, civil rights violations, under Title 18, assault under color of authority. They're throwing everything at you. And the fact that you pissed yourself, that's going to be in every news report. You're not just going to prison. You're going to be humiliated on a national scale." "It was an accident, the stress." "I know, I believe you. But it doesn't matter. The image of a cop who shot an unarmed black man and then wet himself from fear, that's going to define you forever." Cole had asked Kramer to leave after that. Now he sat alone, his mind replaying the morning over and over, looking for the moment he could have stopped, the moment he could have made a different choice. But he couldn't find it. Because from the second he saw Stone in that Mercedes, his ego had taken over. His racism had taken over. His need to dominate had taken over. And now it had destroyed him. A guard appeared at his cell. "Cole, you got a visitor." "I don't want to see anyone." "It's your wife." Cole's heart sank. He'd been dreading this. "Tell her I'm not available." "She's been waiting for 3 hours. She's not leaving." Cole stood slowly, every movement an effort. They led him to a visiting room where his wife Jennifer sat behind reinforced glass, her face swollen from crying. She didn't pick up the phone at first, just stared at him through the glass, her expression a mixture of heartbreak and fury. Finally, she picked it up. "Why?" she asked simply. "I didn't mean to." "Why did you shoot him, James?" "He was being difficult, questioning me. I felt threatened." "He was handcuffed. I saw the video, James. Everyone's seen the video. He was handcuffed and you shot him anyway." Cole couldn't meet her eyes. "I made a mistake." "A mistake. You destroyed our lives, our children's lives. Do you know what they're saying at school? Do you know what it's like for them to see their father on every news channel being called a racist and a murderer?" "I'm not a murderer." "You tried to be. The only reason you're not is because you missed." "I didn't miss. I wasn't trying to." Cole stopped realizing the admission he'd almost made. Jennifer's eyes widened. "Oh my God, you did try to kill him." "No, I meant I wasn't trying to kill him. I was just trying to..." "Stop him from what?" "From being black, from not being afraid of you. What exactly was he doing that deserved being shot?" Cole had no answer. Jennifer set down the phone, her hands shaking. She picked it back up one more time. "I'm filing for divorce. The kids and I are changing our names. I can't be married to this. I won't be." "Jenny, please." But she'd already hung up the phone and was walking away, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Cole sat there for a long time after she left the phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the dial tone like it might suddenly deliver a different message. It didn't. Back at Metro, General Stone woke to the sound of his phone buzzing. He checked the screen. Officer Ryan Foster. "Foster," he answered. "You all right?" "No, sir. Yes, sir. The young officer's voice was shaking. "I just wanted to call and apologize. I should have stopped him sooner. I should have done more. Officer Foster, you did exactly what you needed to do. You kept your camera running. You told the truth. That takes more courage than people realize. But I just stood there while he shot you. You were a 6-month rookie against a 12-year veteran. The power dynamic was impossible. But when it mattered, when you had to choose between loyalty and truth, you chose truth. That's what makes you a good cop. Foster was quiet for a moment. The other officers are calling me a rat, saying I betrayed the brotherhood. Any officer who calls you a rat for telling the truth about attempted murder isn't part of a brotherhood. They're part of a gang. And we're going to dismantle that gang, you and I. Sir, I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. You are. I've seen strong Foster. I know what it looks like. You have it. Another pause. Then, thank you, sir, for everything. Thank you for your integrity. Now get some rest. We've got a lot of work ahead. Stone hung up and stared at the ceiling, his shoulder throbbing despite the pain medication. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow the real war begins. And somewhere in the city and precincts across every district, officers were having similar thoughts. Some with fear, some with hope, some with rage. The battle lines were drawn. Stone just hoped he was strong enough to see it through. Because Detective Cole hadn't just shot him, he'd started a revolution. The revolution came faster than anyone expected. By dawn the next morning, Stone's hospital room had become an impromptu command center. Commissioner Webb had set up a secure laptop, and despite Dr. Chen's protests, Stone was already working from his bed, his good hand flying across the keyboard while his injured shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat. "This is insane," Dr. Chen said, checking his vital signs for the 3rd time in an hour. "You should be resting, not running a police department." "I'll rest when I'm dead," Stone muttered, not looking up from the screen. "Which almost happened yesterday, so I figure I'm living on borrowed time anyway." Webb pulled up a chair, his face grim. "The union's filing a lawsuit. They're claiming your reforms violate the collective bargaining agreement." "Let them sue. We'll win. Civil rights violations trump union contracts every time." Stone clicked through another file. "What about the 9th Precinct? How are the officers responding?" "Mixed. About 30% are supportive, 50% are scared, and 20% are actively hostile. We've had 2 officers call in sick, 3 request transfers, and 1 hand in his badge." "The one who quit? What's his story?" Webb checked his notes. "Officer Thomas Brennan, 15 years on the force. Clean record mostly, but his partner was Cole." Stone looked up sharply. "Cole's partner, before Martinez?" "Yeah. Brennan worked with Cole for 8 years before requesting a reassignment 2 years ago. Never filed a complaint, never said why he wanted out. Get him in here, today. I want to know what he saw. He quit Elijah. He doesn't have to talk to us." "Then make him want to. Tell him we're reopening every case he and Cole worked together. Tell him he can either cooperate and be a witness or stay silent and become a suspect." Webb hesitated. "That's aggressive. Good cops don't protect bad cops for 8 years and then quietly walk away." He knew something. "I want to know what." A knock at the door interrupted them. A young woman in a sharp business suit entered carrying a briefcase. She was in her early 30s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd fought for every inch of respect she'd earned. "Chief Stone, I'm Assistant District Attorney Rachel Morrison. I'm handling the Cole prosecution." Stone gestured to a chair with his good hand. "How solid is our case?" Morrison smiled. "Airtight. The body camera footage alone is damning. We have you clearly handcuffed, clearly complying, and Cole clearly shooting you without justification. Add in the witnesses, the forensics, and Martinez's testimony, and we could get a conviction with our eyes closed." "Then why are you here if it's airtight you don't need me?" "I need to prepare you for what's coming. Cole's attorney is Dennis Kramer. He's a snake, but he's good. He's going to try to put you on trial instead of Cole. He'll argue that you provoked the shooting by conducting an unauthorized undercover operation. He'll paint you as reckless as someone who wanted to create an incident for political purposes." Stone leaned back against his pillows. "Let him try. Everything I did was legal. I was in a public parking lot in my own vehicle committing no crime." "I know that. You know that. But Kramer will argue that you had a duty to identify yourself as a police officer, that by withholding your identity, you created the dangerous situation. That's ridiculous. Citizens have no legal obligation to identify themselves unless they're being lawfully detained. And Cole's initial stop was unlawful. Again, I agree. But Kramer will try to muddy the waters. He'll find character witnesses who'll say Cole was a good cop who made a mistake under pressure. He'll argue that you were testing him and trapping him. Stone's jaw tightened. I wasn't entrapping anyone. I was observing how officers in my department treat citizens when they think no one important is watching. The fact that they treated me like a criminal proves exactly what I came here to fix. Morrison nodded approvingly. That's the argument we'll make. But you need to be prepared for them to dig into your past. Every case you've worked, every officer you've disciplined, every enemy you've made. Kramer will try to paint you as someone with an agenda against police officers. I don't have an agenda against police officers. I have an agenda against bad police officers. There's a difference. I know. But the court of public opinion doesn't always see nuance. Half this city thinks you're a hero. The other half thinks you're a troublemaker who got what he deserved. Webb cut in. The polling numbers came in this morning. 53% support Stone and the reforms. 27% support the police union. 20% are undecided. Those numbers will shift, Morrison warned. As soon as Kramer starts his media campaign, as soon as he gets sympathetic officers on camera crying about how they're afraid to do their jobs, public opinion will fragment. Stone closed his eyes briefly, gathering his thoughts. When he opened them, his gaze was steel. Then we don't play defense. We go on offense. I want every case Cole worked reviewed, every arrest, every use of force report, every citizen complaint. I want to find the pattern. I want to show the jury that Cole didn't make a mistake. He made a choice, the same choice he's been making for years. Morrison pulled out a tablet. I've already started. Cole has been involved in 47 use of force incidents in 12 years. That's almost 4 per year, which is triple the department average. Of those, 41 involved minority suspects. 38 resulted in arrests, but 22 of those arrests were later dismissed or resulted in acquittals, meaning he was arresting people without probable cause. Exactly. And here's the interesting part. In the 3 shootings prior to yours, all 3 suspects were black. All 3 were later found to be unarmed, and all 3 claimed Cole planted evidence or lied in his report. Stone felt his anger rising hot and focused. But the department cleared him every time. The investigations were perfunctory at best. No independent review, no serious interrogation of his narrative, just rubber stamps. Who conducted those investigations? Morrison checked her notes. Captain Linda Brennan. Webb swore under his breath. The same Captain Brennan we suspended yesterday for trying to cover up your shooting. It's a pattern, Stone said quietly. A system. Cole shoots someone, Brennan investigates and clears him. The union protects him and the cycle continues. How many officers are caught in that cycle across this department? That's what we're going to find out, Webb said. I've authorized a complete audit of every officer-involved shooting in the past 10 years. But Elijah, we're talking about hundreds of cases, thousands of hours of work. Then we'd better get started. Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression thunderous. Everyone out. Now. My patient needs rest, and you people are turning my hospital room into a war room. Morrison stood immediately. Of course, Doctor. Chief Stone will continue this later. Webb was more reluctant. Elijah, there are about 50 more things we need to discuss. And they can wait until I'm discharged, Dr. Chen said firmly. Out. All of you. When they'd left, she turned to Stone with a mixture of exasperation and concern. You're running yourself into the ground. Your body is trying to heal from a gunshot wound, and you're treating it like a minor inconvenience. It is a minor inconvenience compared to what we're trying to accomplish. Commander Stone, I've been a trauma surgeon for 15 years. I've treated cops who were shot in the line of duty. I've seen how it affects them physically and psychologically. You're showing all the signs of someone in denial about the trauma they've experienced. Stone looked at her for a long moment. Doctor, with respect, I don't have the luxury of processing trauma right now. I have a department to reform and a trial to prepare for. And you'll do all of that more effectively if you let yourself heal. both physically and mentally. I'll heal when the job is done. Dr. Chen sighed, recognizing the futility of the argument. Fine, but you're taking your pain medication on schedule, you're eating every meal, and you're getting at least 6 hours of sleep tonight. Those aren't suggestions, they're orders. Yes, ma'am. She left shaking her head, and Stone finally allowed himself to feel the exhaustion. His shoulder was on fire, his head pounded, and every muscle in his body ached. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when everything was finally in motion. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Chief Stone, this is Officer Thomas Brennan. I heard you want to talk. I'll meet you, but not at the hospital. Too many eyes. There's a diner on 5th and Main. Tomorrow 7 a.m. Come alone. Stone stared at the message. Brennan was scared, that much was clear. Scared enough to quit his job, but not scared enough to disappear completely, which meant he had something to say. Something important. Stone texted back, I'll be there. The next morning, against Dr. Chen's strenuous objections, and with Commissioner Webb's reluctant approval, Stone discharged himself from the hospital. His arm was in a sling, his shoulders screaming with every movement, but he refused the wheelchair. He needed to walk into that diner on his own 2 feet. Webb had insisted on sending 2 plainclothes officers for security, but Stone made them wait in a car 2 blocks away. Brennan had said, come alone, and Stone needed the man to trust him. The diner was a rundown establishment that probably hadn't been updated since the 70s. Faded vinyl booths, a long counter with cracked stools, and a ceiling that wept water stains. Perfect for a conversation no one wanted to be overheard. Brennan was already there, sitting in the back booth, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. He was a big man, mid-40s, with the kind of wear that came from years of carrying other people's violence. Stone slid into the booth across from him, gritting his teeth against the pain the movement caused. You look like hell, Brennan said. You should see the other guy. Brennan didn't smile. I saw him, on every news channel. James always did have a talent for self-destruction. I just never thought he'd take it this far. A waitress appeared, an older woman, who'd clearly seen everything and was impressed by none of it. Coffee? Please, Stone said. Brennan just nodded. When she'd left, Stone leaned forward. You worked with Cole for 8 years. You saw things. I need to know what. Brennan stared into his coffee cup like it might contain answers. I saw a lot of things I wish I hadn't. Heard a lot of things I wish I could unhear. Tell me. Why should I'm out. I quit. I'm done with all of it. Because if you don't tell me Cole walks, his lawyer will paint him as a good cop who made one mistake under pressure. And you know that's a lie. Brennan's hands tightened around his cup. One mistake. Jesus, James made a mistake every damn day. The only difference is this time someone with power was on the receiving end. Then help me prove it. Help me show the pattern. Brennan was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, haunted. It started small. Traffic stops that went on too long. Questions that had nothing to do with the stop. Searches that weren't quite legal, but weren't quite illegal either. I told myself it was aggressive policing, not bad policing, that James was just being thorough. But it wasn't just thorough, was it? No, it was selective. He'd stopped 10 cars in a shift, but 9 of them were driven by Black or Hispanic drivers. He'd search them, roughing them up a little, always finding a reason to escalate. And if they complained, if they pushed back, he'd make their lives hell. Arrests for resisting that would get dropped later. Use of force that was always ruled justified. You never filed a complaint, Brennan laughed bitterly. File a complaint against my partner. You know what happens to cops who rat out other cops. You become radioactive. No one wants to work with you. No one backs you up. You might as well paint a target on your back. So you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet and I hated myself for it. Every shift, every stop, every person James abused. I told myself I'd speak up next time. But next time never came. I just got better at looking away. Stone felt a mixture of sympathy and anger. Brennan was a victim of the system, but he was also complicit in maintaining it. What changed? Why did you request a transfer? Brennan's eyes got distant, remembering. There was a kid. Couldn't have been more than 17. We stopped him for a broken taillight. Clean record honor student driving his mom's car. James ran his ID, came back clean, but something about the kid rubbed him wrong. Maybe it was the way he was polite, but not submissive. Maybe it was because he was wearing a hoodie from an expensive college. I don't know, but James decided to search the car. Did you have probable cause? We had nothing. The kid refused consent, which was his right. But James didn't care. He yanked the kid out of the car, threw him on the hood, started going through his pockets. The kid was crying, saying he didn't do anything wrong, begging James to stop. And James just laughed, said crying wasn't going to help him. Stone's jaw tightened. What did you do? I stood there, like always, while James tore that car apart looking for something, anything to justify the stop. He didn't find drugs or weapons. You know what he found? A college acceptance letter, full scholarship to Princeton. And Cole's reaction? He crumpled it up, threw it in a puddle, told the kid that colleges like that don't want thugs anyway. The kid was sobbing, asking what he'd done to deserve this. And James leaned in close and said, "You were born wrong. That's what you did." Stone felt sick. Did the kid file a complaint? No, because after James let him go, after we drove away, I circled back, found the kid sitting in his car shaking. I gave him my card, told him to file a complaint with Internal Affairs, told him I'd back him up, testify to what I saw. Did he call? No, he was too scared. Scared that if he complained next time, James would find a reason to arrest him. Or worse. And I realized that's what we'd become. Not protectors. Terrorists. People were afraid of us. And guys like James loved it. Is that when you requested the transfer? Brennan nodded. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't watch James destroy people for the crime of not being afraid enough. I requested a transfer, got moved to traffic division, and told myself I'd done the right thing by getting out. But I didn't do the right thing. I saved myself and left James to keep doing what he'd always done. Until he shot me. Until he shot you. And now it's all coming out and I'm sitting here wondering how many people James hurt because I was too much of a coward to stop him. Sham. Stone reached across the table with his good hand gripping Brennan's wrist. You stop him now. You testify. You tell that jury exactly what you told me. You give those victims a voice. Brennan pulled his hand back, his eyes wet. You know what'll happen if I testify. The union will destroy me. They'll dig up every mistake I ever made, every rule I ever bent. They'll paint me as a vindictive ex-partner with an axe to grind. Let them try. Your testimony corroborates everything else we have. It establishes pattern and practice. It shows this wasn't one bad moment. This was Cole's entire career. And what do I get in return? Protection, a new job. The union's going to come after my pension. I'll protect your pension. I'll give you a job in my office if you want it. But more importantly, you'll get to sleep at night knowing you finally did the right thing. Brennan was quiet for a long time, staring at his coffee. Finally, he looked up, his decision made. Okay, I'll testify, but I want immunity for anything I might have done while partnered with James. I bent rules, roughed up suspects, looked the way when I shouldn't have. If I'm going down, I want it to be for the right reasons. I'll talk to the DA. If your crimes are minor and your testimony is truthful, we can work something out. Brennan extended his hand. Stone shook it with his good hand, sealing the deal. As they left the diner, Stone's phone exploded with messages. Something had happened. Something big. He called Webb immediately. What's going on? We've got a situation. Martinez is talking. Really talking. She just gave us names of 8 other officers at the 9th who've engaged in similar conduct. She's implicating sergeants, lieutenants, even Captain Brennan's predecessor. This goes higher than we thought. Stone felt his pulse quicken. How high? We don't know yet, but Elijah, if half of what she's saying is true, we're looking at a conspiracy that spans decades. Systematic abuse evidence, planting false arrests, all protected by a code of silence that went all the way to the top. Get her into protective custody. If the wrong people find out she's cooperating, she's a target. Already done. The FBI has her in a safe house. They're interviewing her now. Stone looked at Brennan, who'd overheard enough to understand the implications. It's not just James, is it? Brennan asked quietly. It's all of us. Not all of you, Stone said, but enough. Enough to rot the whole department from the inside. His phone buzzed again. This time it was ADA Morrison. Chief Stone, we have a problem. Judge Hendricks just granted Cole's motion for bail. Stone's blood ran cold. What? How he shot a police chief? Kramer argued that Cole has no criminal record, strong ties to the community, and that pretrial detention was excessive given that he turned himself in peacefully. The judge set bail at $500,000. Who's posting it? The police union. They're calling it a legal defense fund, but they're putting up the money. Stone felt rage building in his chest, hot and dangerous. They're bailing out a man who tried to kill me. I know. I'm filing an emergency appeal, but it'll take time. Cole could be out by this afternoon. Stone hung up and turned to Brennan. Cole's getting out on bail. Brennan's face went pale. Jesus, he knows I'm talking to you, doesn't he? How would he know? The union has eyes everywhere. If they're posting his bail, they're protecting their investment. And that means they know Martinez is cooperating, which means they probably know I am too. Stone's mind raced. You need protection, real protection, not just a promise. I need to disappear. If James gets out and the union tells him I'm testifying against him, I'm a dead man. You're not going to die. I won't let that happen. But even as Stone said it, he knew the threat was real. Cops who broke the blue wall of silence didn't just lose their jobs. Sometimes they lost their lives. He called Webb back. I need a protective detail for Thomas Brennan, former officer material witness potential target. We're stretched thin, Elijah. Every cop I trust is already working overtime on the Cole case. Then pull officers from other districts. This is priority 1. I'll see what I can do. Stone hung up and looked at Brennan. You're coming with me. Back to the hospital. We'll keep you there under security until we can arrange something more permanent. The hospital. That's the first place they'll look. It's also full of witnesses and cameras. Harder to make something look like an accident when you're surrounded by doctors and nurses. Brennan didn't look convinced, but he followed Stone to the car where the 2 plainclothes officers waited. On the drive back, Stone's phone rang again. It was Officer Foster. Sir, I need to tell you something. The union rep came to see me this morning. Stone's grip tightened on the phone. What did he want? He said I was making a mistake, that testifying against Cole would ruin my career, that cops who rat out other cops don't last long on the street. That's a threat, Foster. I know, sir, but that's not the worst part. He said the union had been talking to my family, mentioned my mother's address, her medical condition, said it would be a shame if her insurance got complicated or her care got interrupted. Stone felt fury rising. They threatened your mother. Not directly, but the implication was clear. If I testify, my family suffers. Foster listened to me very carefully. You did nothing wrong. You told the truth. And I will personally ensure that nothing happens to you or your family. Do you understand? Yes, sir. But, sir, I'm scared. These are powerful people. They've been protecting each other for decades. How do we fight that? By not backing down, by refusing to be intimidated, and by remembering that they're only powerful if we let them be. Stone hung up and immediately called Webb again. The union is threatening witnesses. Foster and his family need protection. Elijah, I don't have the manpower. Then request federal marshals. Contact the FBI. This is witness intimidation in a federal civil rights case. They have jurisdiction. Webb was silent for a moment. You're escalating this into a full-scale war with the union. They started the war when they bailed out a man who tried to kill me. I'm just finishing it. When they arrived back at the hospital, Dr. Chen was waiting, her arms crossed. You discharged yourself against medical advice, went to a meeting that could have gotten you killed, and now you're bringing more chaos to my hospital. Do you have a death wish, Commander Stone? Just a strong sense of duty, Doctor. She pointed to his arm. That wound is seeping. You've stressed the sutures. You're going back to bed, and this time you're staying there. Stone didn't argue. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the pain was becoming unbearable. He let her lead him back to his room, where she redressed his wound with efficient, angry movements. You're going to end up back in surgery if you keep this up, she muttered. I'll try to take better care of myself. You'll do more than try. You'll succeed, because I didn't put you back together just so you could tear yourself apart again." There was genuine concern in her voice, and Stone felt a flash of guilt. She was right. He was pushing too hard, risking too much. But what choice did he have? "Doctor, when you see trauma victims come through your ER, what keeps you going?" "Knowing that for every person you save, there are 10 more you can't." She paused in her work, considering the question. "I focus on the ones I can save, and I trust that someone else is fighting for the ones I can't reach. That's all any of us can do." That's what I'm doing, fighting for the ones no one else will fight for." "I know, but you can't fight if you're dead or disabled. So let me help you stay alive long enough to win this war." Stone nodded, too exhausted to argue. Webb appeared in the doorway. "Elijah Cole just posted bail. He's out." Stone closed his eyes. "Where is he now?" "Unknown. He left the courthouse 20 minutes ago with his attorney and 2 union reps. We've lost him. Put a tail on him. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to." "Already done. But Elijah, if he comes after witnesses, if he tries to interfere with the case, we might not be able to stop him in time." Stone thought about Foster, scared for his mother, about Martinez hidden in a safe house, about Brennan, who was probably in the hospital cafeteria right now wondering if he'd made a fatal mistake by agreeing to testify. Then we move faster. We build the case so quickly, so thoroughly, that by the time Cole realizes what we're doing, it's too late for him to stop it. Morrison's voice came through Webb's phone on speaker. "Chief Stone, I've accelerated the trial date. We're going to court in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, that's not enough time. It's all the time we have. Judge Hendricks is retiring in a month, and he wants this case resolved before he leaves the bench. If we don't go to trial now, we risk getting a new judge who might be more sympathetic to Kramer's motions." Stone ran his good hand through his hair. "Can we be ready in 3 weeks?" "We have to be. I'm bringing in 2 more prosecutors, and the FBI is assigning a full team to help with the investigation. We'll work around the clock if we have to." "Do it. Whatever resources you need, you'll have them." After Morrison hung up, Webb sat down heavily in the chair beside Stone's bed. "Elijah, I have to ask, is this worth it? The threats, the danger, the political nightmare. Cole's going to prison regardless. We have him dead to rights. Why push for systemic reform when you could just take the win and move on?" Stone looked at his friend, understanding the question behind the question. Webb was worried that Stone was letting his anger drive him instead of his judgment. "Marcus let me tell you about my first day as a patrol officer, 20 years ago, fresh out of the academy, full of ideals about justice and service. My training officer was a guy named Frank Russo, 30 years on the job, respected by everyone. And on my first day, he took me aside and gave me what he called the real training." "What did he say?" "He said there were 2 types of people in the world. There were citizens who deserved our protection, and there were problems who deserved our control. He said the job was simple: protect the citizens, control the problems. And when I asked him how to tell the difference, he said, 'You'll know, you'll feel it.'" Webb was quiet, listening. "For 3 months, I watched Frank divide the world that way, and I watched how he treated the people he labeled as problems. Rougher stops, harsher words, quicker to use force. And when I finally asked him why he treated people differently, you know what he said? 'What?' He said, 'Because they're different, and pretending they're not is how good cops get killed.' It took me another 2 years to realize that what Frank meant by different was black, was poor, was anyone who didn't look like him, or talk like him, or defer to him the way he thought they should." Stone's voice was quiet but intense. "I didn't become a cop to divide the world into citizens and problems. I became a cop to protect everyone. And if that means dismantling a system that's spent decades doing the opposite, then yes, Marcus, it's worth it." Webb nodded slowly. "Then let's dismantle it." Stone's phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "You think you're safe in that hospital? You think your witnesses are safe? We're watching. We know where everyone is. Back off or people get hurt." Stone showed the text to Webb. "We need to trace this." "Already on it," Webb said, forwarding the message to the FBI. "But Elijah, they're serious. This isn't just intimidation. This is a direct threat. Then we take it seriously. Increase security on all witnesses. Get Foster's mother moved to a secure location. And Webb, I want to know who sent this message, because whoever it is just made a very big mistake." "What mistake?" Stone smiled, though there was no warmth in it. They showed their hand. They revealed that they're scared, and scared people make mistakes. We just need to be patient enough to catch them making one. But patience was in short supply, and time was running out. Somewhere in the city, Cole was free, angry, and desperate. Martinez was hiding, terrified that her cooperation would cost her life. Foster was wondering if telling the truth had been the biggest mistake he'd ever made. And Brennan was sitting in a hospital cafeteria, staring at cold coffee and wondering if he'd survive long enough to testify. The battle lines were drawn. The war had begun. And Stone, wounded but unbroken, was ready to see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The mistake came sooner than Stone expected. 48 hours after the threatening text at 2 a.m, Stone's phone rang with an urgency that cut through his medication-induced sleep. "Elijah, we've got him." Webb's voice was electric with triumph. "The idiot used his personal cell phone to send that threat. We traced it to Sergeant Donald Pritchard, 9th Precinct, 22 years on the force, and guess who his union rep is?" Stone was already sitting up, ignoring the lance of pain through his shoulder. "Dennis Kramer." "Bingo. And it gets better. We pulled Pritchard's phone records. He's been in contact with Cole 17 times since Cole posted bail. They met twice, once at a bar in Cole's neighborhood, once at the Union Hall. We've got surveillance footage of both meetings." "What were they discussing?" "We don't have audio, but the body language tells a story. Cole's agitated, aggressive. Pritchard's listening, taking notes. At one point, Cole points at something on his phone, and Pritchard nods. 2 hours later, that threatening text lands in your phone." Stone swung his legs out of bed, his mind already racing. "Arrest him, now, before he has a chance to destroy evidence or flee. FBI's already at his house. They're bringing him in as we speak. I want to be there when they question him." "Elijah, you're still recovering." "I want to see his face when he realizes he just handed us the entire conspiracy. Get me a car." An hour later, Stone walked into the FBI field office, his arm still in a sling, but his bearing pure authority. The agents had set up shop in a conference room that looked like a war room, walls covered with photographs, timelines, and evidence charts mapping out the web of corruption at the 9th Precinct. Special Agent Sandra Reeves, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd made her career taking down organized crime, greeted him with a firm handshake. "Chief Stone, good to finally meet you in person, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "How's Pritchard holding up?" Reeves smiled grimly. He lawyered up immediately, but not before making several very interesting statements. He claimed the text was a joke, that he was just venting frustration, that he never intended to actually threaten anyone. But his phone records tell a different story. "Exactly. We've got texts between him and Cole discussing the witness problem. We've got calls between him and 3 other officers, all from the 9th, all within hours of Martinez entering witness protection. And we've got bank records showing that Pritchard received $10,000 from the union's legal defense fund 2 days after you were shot." Stone felt a cold satisfaction settling over him. They paid him to coordinate the intimidation campaign. "That's our theory. And if we're right, this isn't just witness tampering. This is conspiracy racketeering, potentially RICO charges against the union itself." "How many officers are involved?" Reeves pointed to the wall, where a dozen photographs were connected by red string. "We've identified 12 officers who've had suspicious contact with Cole since he posted bail. Some might be innocent, just friends checking in. But at least 5, including Pritchard, are actively coordinating with him. We're building cases against all of them." Stone studied the board, memorizing faces. Some he recognized from personnel files he'd reviewed. Others were new. But all of them shared the same expression in their photos, a kind of arrogant certainty that they were untouchable. "I want to talk to Pritchard." Reeves hesitated. "His lawyer won't allow it. And frankly, it might compromise the case if you're involved in the interrogation." "I won't interrogate him. I just want him to see me. I want him to understand that his threats failed." Reeves considered this, then nodded. 5 minutes. Observation room only. And if his lawyer objects, we shut it down. They led Stone to a room adjacent to the interrogation chamber. Through one-way glass, he could see Pritchard sitting at a metal table, his lawyer beside him. Pritchard looked older than his 45 years, stress etched deep into his face. His lawyer, a young woman from the union's legal team, was whispering urgently in his ear. Stone picked up the intercom phone. Reeves gave him a warning look, but didn't stop him. "Sergeant Pritchard, this is Chief Stone. I wanted you to see something." Pritchard's head snapped up, his eyes searching for the source of the voice. Stone continued, his voice calm and measured. "You sent me a threatening text thinking it would scare me into backing down, thinking that if you intimidated enough witnesses, this case would collapse. But all you did was prove exactly what I came here to fix. You proved that there's a criminal enterprise operating inside my police department. And now instead of investigating one bad cop, we're investigating a conspiracy." Pritchard's lawyer grabbed his arm, shaking her head frantically, but Pritchard ignored her. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Pritchard said, his voice carrying through the speaker. "This department has a way of doing things, a tradition. You can't just come in here and tear it all down." "Watch me. You're destroying good cops' men who've put their lives on the line for this city. I'm destroying corrupt cops who've hidden behind their badges while victimizing the people they're supposed to protect. There's a difference." Pritchard stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. "Cole was right about you. You're not here to reform anything. You're here to destroy us." Stone leaned closer to the glass, though Pritchard couldn't see him. "If your version of policing requires threatening witnesses and protecting officers who shoot unarmed citizens, then yes, I'm here to destroy it. And Sergeant, you just confessed to conspiracy on a recorded line. Your lawyer's going to have a very difficult time walking that back." Pritchard's face went white as he realized what he'd done. His lawyer was already gathering her files, preparing damage control, but the damage was done. Stone hung up the intercom and turned to Reeves. "How soon can you charge him?" "We'll have charges filed by this afternoon, but Chief Stone, this is going to get uglier. The union will claim we entrapped Pritchard, that you provoked him into making statements he wouldn't have otherwise made. Let them claim whatever they want. We have his text, his phone records, his bank statements, and now his own confession. The evidence doesn't lie." But as Stone left the FBI office, he couldn't shake the feeling that Pritchard's words carried a warning. The department has a way of doing things. How deep did that tradition run? How many officers were part of it, and how far would they go to protect it? The answer came 2 days later, when Officer Ryan Foster's apartment was firebombed. Stone was in physical therapy, grimacing through exercises designed to restore mobility to his shoulder, when Webb burst through the door. "Foster's place was hit last night. Molotov cocktail through the front window. The whole apartment went up." Stone dropped the resistance band he'd been using. "Is he alive?" "He wasn't there. We'd moved him and his mother to a safe house 3 days ago. But whoever did this didn't know that. This was attempted murder, Elijah." Cameras. None that caught the perpetrator's face. But we found accelerant residue that matches materials stolen from the 9th Precinct's evidence locker 2 weeks ago. Stone felt ice in his veins. They used police evidence to firebomb a police officer's home. It's a message. Anyone who testifies against Cole becomes a target. Then we send a message back. "I want every officer at the 9th brought in for questioning. I want polygraphs. I want phone records. I want forensics on everyone. Someone knows who did this, and we're going to find them." But the interrogations yielded nothing. Officers invoked their right to remain silent. Their union provided attorneys blocking every question. The blue wall held firm, impenetrable. It was Foster himself who broke through. 3 days after the firebombing, he called Stone directly. "Sir, I need to meet with you. In person. There's something I need to tell you, but I can't say it over the phone." They met in a secure FBI facility. Foster looking haggard and decades older than his 24 years. His hands shook as he accepted a cup of coffee. "They tried to kill me," he said quietly. "And they almost succeeded, but that's not what's keeping me up at night." "What is—" Foster pulled out his phone, scrolling through screenshots. "After the firebombing, I got messages from other officers. Not threatening messages, supportive ones." He showed Stone the phone, Messages from officers across the department, some expressing outrage at the attack, others offering protection information testimony. There are good cops in this department, sir. Cops who are sick of watching people like Cole get away with murder. They're scared to come forward publicly, but they want to help. They're ready to help. They've been waiting for someone like you. Stone felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or vindication. How many? At least 30 that I know of. Maybe more. They're organizing quietly, forming a group they're calling the Clean Badge Alliance. They want to meet with you. When? Tonight, midnight. A warehouse on the south side. They chose the location, they'll handle security. But sir, you have to come alone. If word gets out that they're cooperating, their careers are over. Maybe their lives. Stone knew it could be a trap, knew that walking into an unsecured warehouse at midnight with a group of potentially hostile officers was insane. But he also knew opportunity when he saw it. I'll be there. Webb tried to stop him. Dr. Chen threatened to physically restrain him. But Stone went anyway, his service weapon concealed under his jacket, his shoulder still aching but functional enough. The warehouse was in an industrial district, empty at night, except for the occasional truck rumbling past. Stone arrived early, watching from his car as officers began to appear. They came one at a time, parking blocks away, approaching on foot. Cautious. Scared. By midnight, 32 officers had gathered inside their faces, illuminated by flashlights and phone screens. They ranged in age from rookies to veterans, from patrol officers to detectives. But they all shared the same expression, determination mixed with fear. Stone walked in, and the room fell silent. A female detective stepped forward mid-30s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd fought for every ounce of respect. Chief Stone, I'm Detective Amanda Torres. I speak for this group. Thank you for coming. Thank you for reaching out. I know the risk you're taking. We've been taking risks every day, sir. Risk that our silence makes us complicit. Risk that our cowardice enables monsters. We're done being silent. Another officer spoke up, an older man with gray at his temples. I've been on the force 20 years. I've watched good cops get pushed out and bad cops get promoted. I've watched the union protect criminals with badges. I'm done watching. A younger officer, barely older than Foster, added, Cole shot you because you threatened his power. But you know what threatens it more, us. All of us standing together saying enough is enough. Stone felt emotion rising in his throat. What do you need from me? Torres pulled out a tablet. We've been documenting every illegal stop we've witnessed, every excessive use of force, every time a supervisor looked the way or the union covered up misconduct. We have dates, times, names, witnesses, years of documentation. She handed him the tablet. Stone scrolled through it, his eyes widening. Hundreds of incidents, thousands of pages of notes, photos, videos, a complete record of systemic corruption. This is incredible, but why didn't you come forward before? Because we had no one to come forward to, Torres said. Internal affairs was compromised. The supervisors were part of the system. The union would destroy anyone who spoke up. But now we have you, someone from outside, someone they can't control. Stone looked around the room at these officers, these people who'd spent years carrying the weight of moral compromise, waiting for someone to give them permission to do the right thing. Here's what's going to happen, he said. We're going to use this documentation to build cases against every corrupt officer, every complicit supervisor, every union official who enabled this. But I need something from you first. I need you to be willing to testify, publicly, with your names attached, because anonymous accusations won't hold up in court. The room erupted in worried murmurs. Torres held up a hand for silence. We know the risks, sir. We've discussed them. We're willing to testify. But we need protection. Real protection, not just promises. You'll have it. Federal witness protection if necessary. New assignments, transfers to different districts, armed security details. Whatever it takes. An officer in the back spoke up. What about our families? The union knows where we live, where our kids go to school. How do you protect against that? The FBI is already investigating the union for racketeering. Once we bring these charges, the union's leaders will be fighting for their own freedom. They won't have time to threaten witnesses. Torres met his eyes. You really think we can win this? I know we can. Because they're not fighting against one wounded chief anymore. They're fighting against all of us, and they don't have the numbers. A detective Stone recognized from the files spoke up. What about Cole? His trial starts in a week. If he walks, everything falls apart. Cole's not walking, Stone said with absolute certainty. The evidence against him is ironclad. He's going to prison. And once he does, once people see that even the most protected officer can be held accountable, the dam breaks. Others will come forward, more witnesses, more documentation. The system protects itself through fear. We break that fear, we break the system. They talked for 2 more hours, planning strategy, coordinating testimony, building alliances. When Stone finally left the warehouse at 3 a.m, he felt something he hadn't felt since being shot, genuine optimism. But the optimism was short-lived. The next morning, Dennis Kramer held a press conference that sent shock waves through the city. My client, Detective James Cole, has been the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt, Kramer announced to a packed room of reporters. Chief Stone came to this city with an agenda to destroy good police officers. He deliberately provoked my client, conducting an illegal undercover operation designed to entrap him. And now, using falsified evidence and coerced testimony, he's attempting to send an innocent man to prison. Kramer held up a document. We have sworn affidavits from 3 officers stating that Chief Stone's account of the incident differs from what they witnessed. We have expert testimony that will prove the shooting was justified under department guidelines. And we have evidence that Chief Stone himself has a history of fabricating charges against police officers he personally dislikes. The reporters shouted questions, but Kramer continued over them. Detective Cole is not a racist. He is not a criminal. He is a decorated officer who made a split-second decision to defend himself against what he perceived as a threat. The fact that the threat turned out to be his new chief of police is tragic, but it does not make it murder. This trial is a travesty of justice, and we will prove it. Stone watched the press conference from his hospital room where he was undergoing another round of physical therapy. Dr. Chen stood beside him, her face troubled. He's lying, she said. I treated your wounds. I saw the angle of entry. There's no way Cole felt threatened. I know he's lying. You know he's lying. But Kramer's job isn't to tell the truth. It's to create doubt, and he's very good at his job. Webb called immediately after the press conference ended. The polls shifted. We're down to 42% support. People are starting to believe Kramer's narrative. Then we change the narrative. Call ADA Morrison. I want to accelerate our timeline. We're not waiting for Cole's trial. We're bringing charges against Pritchard, against the officers who firebombed Foster's apartment, against everyone we have evidence on. We flood the zone with so many cases that the public can't deny the pattern. Elijah, that's risky. If we rush the cases and lose it, undermines everything. We won't lose. We have the evidence. We have the witnesses. And now we have 32 officers willing to testify. Trust me, Marcus. Webb was silent for a long moment. Okay, I trust you. Let's do it. The next 72 hours were a blur of activity. The FBI arrested Sergeant Pritchard on conspiracy and witness intimidation charges. 2 officers from the 9th were arrested for the firebombing. 3 supervisors were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. And the U.S. Attorney announced a federal civil rights investigation into the entire police department. The union responded by calling for a vote of no confidence in Stone's leadership. Officers across the city staged a sick-out with over 300 calling in sick on the same day. Crime predictably spiked. Politicians demanded answers. The mayor faced calls for resignation. But Stone didn't flinch. In a televised address, he stood before the city, his arm still in a sling, and spoke directly to the camera. I was shot by an officer who believed he was above the law. An officer who thought his badge gave him the right to brutalize citizens without consequence. That officer was wrong, and every officer standing with him is wrong. This city deserves better. This city demands better. And I will not stop until every citizen can trust that the police are here to protect them, not to victimize them. If that costs me my job, so be it. But I will not back down. Not now. Not ever. The speech went viral. Supporters rallied in the streets holding signs reading "Stone Strong" and "Justice for All." Counter-protesters from the police union clashed with them, leading to arrests and injuries. The city felt like it was tearing itself apart. And through it all, Cole's trial date approached like an oncoming train. Stone spent the week before trial in constant meetings with Morrison and her team, reviewing evidence, preparing testimony, anticipating Kramer's strategies. His shoulder screamed with pain, but he pushed through it, fueled by coffee and determination. The night before trial, he sat alone in his temporary office at City Hall, staring at crime scene photos from his own shooting. His white shirt stained with blood, his face showing the bruising from Cole's punch, his body on the pavement handcuffed and helpless. He'd spent his entire career on the other side of these photos investigating other people's traumas. Now he was the trauma, the victim, the evidence. His phone buzzed. A text from Foster. "Sir, I'm scared. What if we lose? What if Cole walks free?" Stone typed back slowly with his good hand. "Then we appeal, and we retry, and we keep fighting until justice is done. Fear is what they want. Don't give it to them." Another text this time from Torres. "The Clean Badge Alliance is ready. Tomorrow we stand together." And finally, a text from Webb. "Get some sleep, Elijah. You're going to need your strength." But sleep wouldn't come. Stone's mind raced with scenario strategies, potential disasters. What if the jury believed Kramer's lies? What if they saw a decorated veteran officer and couldn't reconcile that image with attempted murder? What if Stone's own determination to reform the department made him seem vindictive? He thought about Cole probably awake in his own home, preparing his own defense. Did the man feel any remorse, any recognition that what he'd done was wrong? Or had he convinced himself of his own innocence, rewritten the narrative in his mind until he was the victim? Stone looked at his reflection in the dark window. His face was thinner, harder. The shooting had aged him, but his eyes still held fire. Tomorrow that fire would be tested. Tomorrow everything would be decided. And Stone swore to himself on everything he believed in that Cole would face justice, no matter what it took. The courthouse steps were a war zone. Protesters on both sides screamed at each other across police barricades, their signs clashing like weapons. Justice for Stone met "Back the Blue" in a cacophony of rage that echoed off the marble columns. News helicopters circled overhead, their cameras capturing every moment of a city divided. Stone arrived in an unmarked car flanked by federal marshals. His arm was still in a sling, a visible reminder of why they were all here. As he stepped out, the crowd erupted. Supporters cheered. Opponents booed. Someone threw a bottle that shattered on the pavement 3 feet from where he stood. "Keep moving," one of the marshals urged, but Stone paused, looking directly at the cameras. "Today, justice begins," he said clearly. "Not just for me, but for every citizen who's been victimized by officers who forgot their oath." Dennis Kramer was already inside, surrounded by reporters playing his role perfectly. "This trial is a sham," he announced, "a political prosecution designed to intimidate good police officers. But the jury will see through it. They'll see that Detective Cole is the real victim here." Stone walked past without acknowledging him, but Kramer called out, "Chief Stone, are you ready to admit under oath that you deliberately provoked my client?" Stone stopped, turned slowly. "Counselor, the only thing I'm ready to admit is that your client shot an unarmed, handcuffed man. Everything else is noise." "We'll see what the jury thinks." "Yes," Stone said quietly. "We will." Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric with tension. The gallery was packed, every seat filled with officers, activists, family members, and curious citizens who'd camped out overnight for a chance to witness history. Judge Margaret Hendricks, a stern woman in her late 60s, with a reputation for absolute fairness, surveyed the room with disapproval. "I will have order in my courtroom," she announced, before anyone had even spoken. "This is not a circus. This is not a political rally. This is a trial. Anyone who cannot conduct themselves with appropriate decorum will be removed. Is that understood?" The room fell silent. Cole sat at the defense table looking smaller than Stone remembered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a nervous energy that manifested in constant fidgeting. He wore a suit instead of his uniform, probably Kramer's decision, an attempt to humanize him. But his eyes, when they met Stone's across the courtroom, still held defiance. A-Day Rachel Morrison approached Stone during a brief recess before jury selection. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine. What's our jury strategy?" "We want people who understand institutional racism, who've had negative experiences with police, but who can still be objective about evidence. Kramer's going to try to stack the jury with law and order conservatives who'll give Cole every benefit of the doubt. Can we win with a mixed jury? We can win with the evidence. But juries are unpredictable, especially in cases involving police officers. Everything depends on how they perceive you when you testify." Jury selection took 2 days. Kramer challenged every minority candidate, every young person, every potential juror who expressed even mild skepticism about police conduct. Morrison fought back, challenging anyone with family in law enforcement, anyone who belonged to police advocacy groups, anyone who couldn't acknowledge that officers sometimes abuse their power. In the end, they seated 12 jurors, 7 women, 5 men, racially diverse ages ranging from 26 to 68. It wasn't ideal for either side, which probably meant it was fair. Morrison's opening statement was crisp and devastating. She walked the jury through the timeline using photographs and video stills projected on a large screen. On the morning of the incident, Commander Elijah Stone, a decorated law enforcement officer with 20 years of exemplary service, sat in his legally parked vehicle in a public parking lot. He was committing no crime, violating no law, simply observing the precinct where he would soon serve as chief of police. Detective James Cole approached him without probable cause, without reasonable suspicion, without any legal justification whatsoever. Why? Because Commander Stone is black, because he was driving an expensive car, because in Detective Cole's worldview, a black man in a Mercedes must be a criminal. Kramer objected. "Your Honor, the prosecution is making assumptions about my client's motivations without evidence." "I'm establishing motive, Your Honor," Morrison countered, "which I will prove through Detective Cole's pattern of behavior and his own statements." Judge Hendricks nodded. "Overruled. Continue, Ms. Morrison." Morrison clicked to the next image showing Stone's blood-stained shirt. Detective Cole didn't just stop Commander Stone. He assaulted him, punched him in the face while he was complying with every instruction. And when Commander Stone calmly informed him that he was shooting his own police chief, Detective Cole's response was not to apologize, not to de-escalate, but to shoot him. This wasn't a split-second decision made in fear. This was attempted murder motivated by racism and wounded ego. And we will prove it beyond any reasonable doubt. Kramer's opening was a masterclass in misdirection. He painted Cole as a dedicated officer working in a dangerous neighborhood, constantly on alert for threats. He described Stone's behavior as suspicious, evasive, deliberately provocative. "Commander Stone came to this city with an agenda," Kramer told the jury, his voice rich with sympathy for his client. "He wanted to find corrupt officers. He wanted to create a crisis that would justify his existence. So he conducted an illegal undercover operation, deliberately withholding his identity from officers who were simply doing their jobs. He played a game, ladies and gentlemen. And when that game went wrong, when Detective Cole made an honest mistake in a high-stress situation, Commander Stone decided to destroy him for it." Stone sat rigidly, his good hand clenched into a fist, listening to his own victimization being twisted into villainy. Morrison leaned over and whispered, "Let him talk. The evidence will destroy every word." The prosecution's case unfolded methodically over the next week. Morrison called the paramedic who'd treated Stone at the scene, who testified that the wound trajectory indicated Stone was turned away from Cole when shot not advancing toward him. She called the forensic expert who'd analyzed the blood spatter and determined that Stone was stationary, not moving aggressively. She called Dr. Chen, who described the severity of the injury in clinical detail that made several jurors wince. Then came Officer Foster. The young officer looked terrified as he took the stand, his eyes darting to the gallery where several uniformed officers sat, their expressions hostile. Morrison guided him through his testimony gently. "Officer Foster, please describe what you witnessed on the morning in question." Foster's voice shook at first, but grew stronger as he spoke. "I saw Detective Cole approach the Mercedes. I heard him order the driver out without identifying himself or stating a reason for the stop. The driver, Commander Stone, complied immediately. He was polite, calm, didn't resist at any point." "Did Commander Stone make any threatening movements?" "No, ma'am. His hands were visible the entire time. When Detective Cole handcuffed him, he didn't resist. When Detective Cole punched him, he didn't fight back. He just stood there bleeding and tried to explain who he was." "And what was Detective Cole's response to that explanation?" Foster looked directly at Cole. "He called Commander Stone a liar, said he was impersonating an officer, got more aggressive, not less. Did you believe Commander Stone was a threat at any point?" "No, ma'am. He was handcuffed, unarmed, complying. There was no threat." Kramer's cross-examination was brutal. "Officer Foster, isn't it true that you requested a transfer out of the 9th Precinct after this incident?" "Yes, sir." "And isn't it true that you received a promotion shortly after agreeing to testify against Detective Cole?" Foster's face flushed. "I was promoted based on my performance, not my testimony." "Really? A rookie officer with 6 months' experience gets promoted during a departmental crisis, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're the star witness against a decorated veteran." "Objection," Morrison said sharply. "Argumentative and speculative." "Sustained," Judge Hendricks ruled. "Mr. Kramer asked questions, don't make speeches." But the damage was done. Kramer had planted the seed that Foster was an opportunist, testifying for career advancement rather than truth. The next witness was Thomas Brennan. The former officer looked like he'd aged years in the weeks since Stone had met him at the diner. He took the stand reluctantly, avoiding eye contact with the uniformed officers in the gallery. Morrison established his credentials, his 8 years partnering with Cole, his eventual transfer away from the 9th Precinct. Then she asked the critical question. "Mr. Brennan, during your time partnering with Detective Cole, did you witness him engage in racially biased policing?" Brennan closed his eyes briefly. "Yes, regularly." "Can you describe what you witnessed?" Cole would profile drivers based on race. If he saw a black or Hispanic person in what he considered the wrong neighborhood or the wrong car, he'd find a reason to stop them. Broken taillight lane violation, anything. Then he'd escalate the situation, searching them without probable cause, roughing them up if they questioned his authority. "Did you ever report this behavior?" "No." Brennan's voice was barely above a whisper. "I should have. I know I should have. But I was afraid of the consequences." "What consequences?" "The union makes it very clear what happens to officers who report misconduct. You become radioactive. No one wants to work with you. You might get transferred to the worst assignments, passed over for promotions, or driven out entirely. I chose my career over my conscience, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." The courtroom was silent. Even Kramer seemed momentarily thrown by the raw honesty of the admission. Morrison pressed on. "Based on your observations, does Detective Cole's treatment of Commander Stone fit a pattern of behavior?" "Objection." Kramer was on his feet. "Calls for speculation." "Your Honor, Mr. Brennan is being asked to compare behavior he personally witnessed over 8 years to the incident in question. That's not speculation, that's pattern evidence." Judge Hendricks considered. "I'll allow it, but be specific, Mr. Brennan." Brennan nodded. "It fits perfectly. Cole saw a black man who didn't show fear, who knew his rights, who spoke with authority. That's exactly the type of person Cole couldn't tolerate. He needed to dominate to prove his power. When Commander Stone didn't submit, Cole escalated to violence. I saw him do it dozens of times. The only difference this time was that his victim had the resources to fight back." Kramer's cross-examination tried to paint Brennan as a disgruntled former partner with an axe to grind, but Brennan's obvious remorse made the attacks feel hollow. Then came Martinez. The former detective had lost weight, her face gaunt from weeks in witness protection. She refused to look at Cole as she was sworn in. Morrison's questions were direct. Detective Martinez, you were present during the entire incident. Did Commander Stone pose a threat to Detective Cole? No, he was handcuffed. He couldn't have posed a threat even if he'd wanted to. Did you attempt to stop Detective Cole from shooting? Martinez's voice broke. I told him to stop. I said it was too far, but I didn't physically intervene. I should have. I could have prevented it, but I was too afraid of Cole's reaction. What happened after the shooting? Cole panicked. He realized what he'd done. He wet himself from fear. Then he tried to get me to back up his story to say Commander Stone had been aggressive, threatening. I refused at first, but then Captain Brennan arrived, and I knew the department would protect Cole like they always did, so I went along with it until my conscience couldn't take it anymore. Kramer tried to destroy her credibility, pointing out her initial false statements, her criminal charges, her plea agreement in exchange for testimony, but Morrison rehabilitated her on redirect. Detective Martinez, why should this jury believe you now when you lied initially? Martinez looked directly at the jury, tears streaming down her face. Because I have to live with myself. I have to look in the mirror knowing I protected a man who tried to kill someone. I'm testifying because it's the only way I can begin to make that right. I'll go to prison for what I did. I accept that. But Cole needs to go to prison too. The prosecution's final witness was Stone himself. He walked to the stand slowly, his shoulder still limited in mobility, his sling a constant reminder of the violence. Morrison guided him through his credentials, his distinguished career, his appointment as chief. Commander Stone, why did you arrive 3 days early to observe the 9th Precinct? Because I'd reviewed complaint files showing a pattern of excessive force and racial profiling. I needed to see how officers behaved when they thought they weren't being watched. I needed to understand the culture I was being asked to reform. Did you identify yourself to Detective Cole? I did not initially. I wanted to observe how he would treat a citizen who exercised their constitutional rights. At any point did you threaten Detective Cole or make aggressive movements toward him? Never. I complied with every instruction. I answered his questions politely. I did everything a citizen is supposed to do when interacting with police. Morrison paused, letting that sink in. Commander Stone, Detective Cole's attorney, has suggested that you deliberately provoked this incident. How do you respond? Stone looked directly at the jury. I tested whether officers in my department would treat citizens with respect, regardless of their race or perceived status. Detective Cole failed that test catastrophically. If a police officer only behaves professionally when dealing with someone powerful, that's not professional conduct. That's discrimination. What went through your mind when Detective Cole shot you? Stone was quiet for a moment, remembering. I thought about all the people he'd probably done this to before. People without badges or credentials to protect them. People who couldn't fight back. And I thought that if I survived, I had an obligation to make sure he never did it to anyone again. Kramer's cross-examination was aggressive from the first question. Commander Stone, you've made a career out of investigating police officers, haven't you? I've made a career out of holding corrupt officers accountable, yes. How many officers have you investigated in your 20-year career? Hundreds. And how many of those resulted in disciplinary action? Approximately 60%. So you destroy police careers for a living. I hold criminals accountable for their crimes. The fact that some of them wear badges doesn't change that. Kramer shifted tactics. You testified that you wanted to observe how officers treated citizens, but you're not a citizen, are you? You're a police chief. At the time of the incident, I was a citizen in a public parking lot. I had no duty to identify my profession. But you knew your identity would change how you were treated. Yes, and that's exactly the problem. Every citizen deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of who they are. You set a trap for my client. I created an opportunity for your client to do his job correctly. He chose violence instead. Kramer's face reddened. You deliberately withheld information that would have prevented this entire incident. Stone's voice remained calm. I withheld information that shouldn't have mattered. Your client shot me because I'm black and I didn't show sufficient fear. Nothing I said or didn't say justifies that. You're putting words in my client's mouth. I'm describing his actions. The words are yours." Judge Hendricks interrupted. "Gentlemen, this is cross-examination, not a debate. Mr. Kramer, ask your questions." But Stone had won that exchange, and everyone in the courtroom knew it. The defense case was thin. Kramer called several officers who testified to Cole's good character, his bravery under fire, his dedication to the community. But none of them could explain away the body camera footage which Morrison played again during closing arguments. The video was devastating. 12 minutes of Cole harassing, assaulting, and ultimately shooting an unarmed man who'd done nothing wrong. The jury watched in silence as Stone bled on the pavement while Cole stood over him making excuses. Morrison's closing argument was powerful. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not complicated. Detective Cole shot an unarmed, handcuffed man because that man refused to be intimidated. All the character witnesses in the world can't change what you saw in that video. All the justifications about stress and split-second decisions can't explain why Cole punched Commander Stone before shooting him. This was attempted murder motivated by racism and ego, and the only just verdict is guilty." Kramer's closing was passionate but ultimately unconvincing. He tried to reframe the shooting as a tragic mistake, claimed that Stone's refusal to identify himself created a dangerous situation, argued that Cole genuinely believed he was in danger, but the evidence simply didn't support it. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Stone spent that time in his office, unable to focus on anything else. Webb visited, bringing updates on the department's continuing investigation into other officers. Morrison called hourly with no news. Foster texted encouragement. Torres and the Clean Badge Alliance sent messages of support. But Stone couldn't shake the fear that the jury would believe Kramer's lies, that they'd see a decorated officer and give him the benefit of doubt he didn't deserve, that Cole would walk free while Stone's reforms died before they could take root. On the afternoon of the second day, his phone rang. Morrison's voice was tight with emotion. "We have a verdict." The courtroom was packed again, the tension even thicker than during opening statements. Cole sat pale and still at the defense table, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Kramer whispered something to him, but Cole didn't seem to hear. Stone took his seat behind the prosecution table, Morrison beside him. She reached over and squeezed his good hand briefly. "Whatever happens, you started something that can't be stopped," she whispered. Judge Hendricks entered, and everyone rose. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. Stone tried to gauge their body language, their expressions, looking for any hint of their decision, but they'd been well instructed to reveal nothing. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Hendricks asked. The forewoman, a middle-aged black woman who worked as a teacher, stood. "We have, Your Honor." "What say you?" The forewoman looked directly at Cole. "On the charge of attempted murder of a police officer, we find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted. Supporters cheered. Union members shouted in protest. Judge Hendricks banged her gavel repeatedly, calling for order. The forewoman continued over the chaos. "On the charge of assault under color of authority, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of civil rights violations, we find the defendant guilty." Cole's head dropped to the table. Kramer's face was ashen, and Stone felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in weeks: relief. Judge Hendricks restored order and addressed Cole. "Detective Cole, you have been found guilty on all counts. I am remanding you to federal custody pending sentencing. Bailiff, please take him into custody." As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, Cole suddenly stood, his face contorted with rage. "This is bullshit. I was doing my job. I was protecting this city." "Mr. Cole, you need to sit down," Judge Hendricks ordered. But Cole was beyond reason. He pointed at Stone, his hand shaking. "You destroyed me. You came here to destroy all of us." "I came here to do my job," Stone said quietly. "You destroyed yourself." Cole lunged toward Stone, but the bailiff caught him, forcing him back. Kramer tried to calm his client, but Cole shoved him away. "I'm not going to prison for doing what every cop in this city does. I'm not the problem. He is." The bailiff wrestled Cole toward the door as he continued screaming, "You're all going to pay for this. Every one of you. This isn't over." But it was over. Stone watched as Cole was dragged from the courtroom, still raging, still refusing to accept responsibility. And he felt not triumph, but profound sadness at the waste of it all. Outside the press was a feeding frenzy. Stone stood on the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. "Chief Stone, how do you feel about the verdict?" "I feel that justice was served, not just for me, but for every citizen who's been victimized by officers who abuse their power." "What's next for the department?" "The reforms continue. This verdict proves that no officer is above the law. We're going to build a department that every citizen can trust." "The union is calling this a miscarriage of justice. How do you respond?" "The union is wrong. Justice is exactly what happened today. And if they continue to protect officers like Cole, they'll find themselves facing criminal charges too." That night, Stone met with the Clean Badge Alliance. All 32 officers were present, plus a dozen more who'd come forward after the verdict. They gathered in a conference room at City Hall, their faces showing a mixture of relief and determination. Torres spoke for the group. "Chief Stone, the verdict today gave us hope that we can actually change this department. What do you need from us?" Stone looked around the room at these officers who'd found the courage to stand up. "I need you to lead. You know where the corruption is, who the bad actors are, what needs to change. I'm giving each of you authority to implement reforms in your respective divisions. You'll have my full support and protection. But the work has to come from within. I can't reform this department alone." An older sergeant stood. "Some of us are going to face retaliation. The verdict doesn't change that." "You're right. Which is why I'm creating a new division, the Professional Standards Bureau, that reports directly to me. Any officer who experiences retaliation for reporting misconduct comes to that bureau. We document it, investigate it, and prosecute it. The days of the blue wall protecting criminals are over." The meeting lasted 3 hours. They discussed strategies, identified problem officers, planned training programs. By the end, Stone had a comprehensive reform plan that would transform the department over the next 2 years. As everyone filed out, Foster hung back. "Sir, I wanted to thank you for believing in me, for protecting my family, for showing me what good leadership looks like." Stone put his good hand on the young officer's shoulder. "You showed courage when it mattered most, Ryan. That's not something I taught you. That was already in you. What happens now? Now we rebuild. One officer at a time, one policy at a time. It won't be easy. There will be resistant setbacks, failures. But we don't stop. We never stop fighting for what's right." 3 months later, Stone stood in his office at police headquarters. His arm finally free from the sling, his shoulder still stiff but functional. The reforms were progressing. 37 officers had been disciplined or terminated. The union's leadership was under federal investigation. Community trust was slowly rebuilding. His phone rang. It was the warden at the federal prison where Cole was serving his sentence. "Chief Stone, I thought you'd want to know. Detective Cole was attacked by inmates yesterday. He's in the infirmary with serious injuries." Stone felt a complicated mixture of emotions. What happened? Other inmates found out he was a cop who shot his own chief. Prison justice. "We're moving him to protective custody, but it's going to be a difficult 25 years for him." Stone hung up and thought about Cole facing the same violence and fear he'd inflicted on others. It wasn't satisfying exactly, more like inevitable, the circle completing itself. Webb knocked and entered. "The mayor wants to see you. She's talking about making your position permanent, extending your contract for 5 more years." "What do you think?" "I think this city needs you. But I also think you've given enough. You've been shot, threatened, nearly killed. No one would blame you if you walked away." Stone looked out the window at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, a citizen was being stopped by police. The question was whether that stop would be respectful and lawful or abusive and corrupt. The answer to that question would determine whether his sacrifice meant anything. "I'm not walking away," he said finally. "Not until the job is finished." "The job's never finished, Elijah. There will always be corrupt cops, always be resistance to reform. Then I guess I'll be here a while. Webb smiled. The Clean Badge Alliance is up to 90 officers now. Torres says she's got recruits from every precinct. You've started a movement. They started the movement. I just gave them permission to be brave. That evening, Stone attended a community meeting in the neighborhood where Cole had shot him. Hundreds of citizens packed the room, some supportive, some skeptical. He stood before them without notes, without a script. 3 months ago, I was shot in a parking lot 3 blocks from here. I was shot because a police officer saw my skin color and assumed I was a criminal. Many of you have experienced similar treatment, been stopped without cause, searched without consent, treated like suspects instead of citizens. I can't undo those experiences. I can't erase the trauma the department has caused. But I can promise you this, we're changing. It won't happen overnight. There will be setbacks. But every day we're building a department that serves all citizens equally, a department you can trust. An older woman stood. My son was killed by police 5 years ago. They said he was armed. He wasn't. They said he was dangerous. He was 17 years old. What are you doing for families like mine? Stone felt the weight of her grief. I'm reopening every questionable police shooting from the past 10 years, including your son's case. If officers lied, they'll be prosecuted. If the investigations were inadequate, they'll be redone. It won't bring your son back, nothing can do that. But you deserve the truth. And if that truth reveals crimes, the officers responsible will face justice. The woman sat down crying. Others in the room were crying too. Years of pain and anger finally being acknowledged. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Stone answered every question honestly, even when the answers weren't satisfying. When it ended, dozens of people lined up to shake his hand, to tell their stories, to express cautious hope that things might actually change. As Stone drove home that night, his shoulder aching from the long day, he thought about the journey. The shooting, the trial, the verdict, the ongoing fight for reform. It had cost him physically, emotionally, professionally. But it had also revealed something important, that systems only change when someone has the courage to stand against them, even when standing might cost everything. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, expecting another threat from Cole's supporters. But something made him check. Chief Stone, this is Marcus Reynolds. You don't know me, but 5 years ago your predecessor's officers beat me so badly I spent a month in the hospital. They said I resisted arrest. I didn't. They planted drugs on me. I served 3 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. I heard you're reopening cases. I'm ready to testify. I'm ready to fight. Stone pulled over his hands, shaking. This was why it mattered. This was why the pain was worth it. For every Marcus Reynolds who'd been victimized by the system he'd sworn to fix. He texted back, "Come to my office Monday morning. Bring any documentation you have. We'll make this right." 3 more texts came in, 3 more victims, 3 more stories of injustice. Stone saved each one, adding them to the growing list of cases to investigate. The work was overwhelming, exhausting. Sometimes it felt impossible. But as Stone started his car and headed home, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. Not the hollow purpose of climbing a career ladder, but the deep soul-level purpose of fighting for something bigger than himself. Cole was in prison. The corrupt officers were being rooted out. The reforms were taking hold. The Clean Badge Alliance was growing. And slowly, painfully, the city was beginning to heal. Stone knew there would be more battles, more resistance, more officers who believed their badges made them untouchable. But he also knew that he wasn't fighting alone anymore. He had allies in the department, in the community, in the prosecutor's office, in the FBI. He had people who believed that change was possible. And most importantly, he had proof that courage matters, that standing up works, that one person refusing to be intimidated can start a revolution. As he pulled into his driveway, his shoulder throbbing, his body exhausted, his spirit somehow stronger than ever, Stone allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They'd shot him, threatened him, tried to destroy him, and he was still standing, still fighting, still winning. The battle for his city's soul wasn't over, but for the first time since arriving, Stone believed they could actually win it. not through violence or intimidation, but through truth, accountability, and the kind of courage that refuses to back down even when backing down would be easier. He'd come to this city to reform a police department. Instead, he'd sparked a movement that was transforming an entire culture. And tomorrow, when he woke up and went back to work, he'd continue that transformation. One case at a time, one officer at a time, one victim at a time, because that's what justice looked like. Not a single dramatic verdict, but years of persistent, unglamorous work. Building trust, enforcing accountability, refusing to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. Stone smiled as he unlocked his door, thinking about Cole sitting in a prison cell, finally facing consequences for his actions. Thinking about Foster and Torres and all the good cops who could finally do their jobs without fear. Thinking about the community members who were beginning to believe that police could actually serve and protect them. The revolution had started with a gunshot, but it would be one with something more powerful than violence. It would be one with integrity, courage, and the absolute refusal to let corruption win. And Stone was just getting started.